38-year-old business owner Greg Hardy and his girlfriend Jill Connor are suing their neighbors, loan officer Tianatra Patrice Manley and her daughter, 15-year-old Whitney, for car repair bills and damage to a bicycle.
Yeah, this is case number 575 on the calendar, the matter of Connor Hardy versus Manley. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated.
According to your complaint, Mr. Hardy, there came a time several months ago when your girlfriend discovered that her car had been hit. Nobody left any information as to the perpetrator of that hit and run, but you went on a sleuthing expedition in your neighborhood, and you came up with the defendant's car, and you found that there was damage to her car, same location, same color paint as happened to be on your car. When confronted, the defendant first acknowledged, then denied that someone else, I think you, were driving the car, but that wasn't their responsibility because although their car had been in an accident, you hit a metal garbage can. A metal garbage can, not her car. Later, which is the second part of your complaint, you claimed that while acting very innocently, the defendant ran over you while you were on your bicycle, causing you medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering, et cetera, et cetera. So you want the damage to your car, you want all the aggravation medical bills as a result of being hit by the defendant with her car. When was your car hit?
December 23rd. I walked out of the house and noticed that my car had been sideswiped on the front swale.
You have a picture of the car?
Yes, ma'am.
How far do you live from each other?
I think we have about 5 or 6 homes between us.
How long have you lived there?
6 years.
And you?
5.
Never had any problem with each other before?
No.
Nasty.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of paint was on your car? Your paint and what other paint?
And a dark green paint.
Another dark green. Okay. What made you think, Mr. Hardy, that it was Miss Manley's car that caused the damage?
Well, on Christmas Eve, I took a walk down the street. We live on a dead-end street, so I knew if there was somebody on the street that damaged the car, there was a good possibility the car would be there. I walked down the street and saw the damaged vehicle in her carport. I knocked on her door.
Where was it damaged?
It is damaged on the front passenger side. We have the pictures.
It's on the side of the car.
Jill's car is parked on the swale with traffic. Her car was sideswiped on the driver's side, which means if a car was going down the street, most likely it would be on the passenger side damage.
What kind of car do you have?
A Lexus. I have my photos as well.
Can I see your car?
Yeah. I only have damage, a dent, 2 dents in the front side of my car. She has a swipe, and my car hit a metal dumpster at McDonald's.
Well, you don't know that. You weren't driving the car.
Yes, ma'am, that's true.
They told you that that's what happened?
Yes, ma'am, that's true.
Who was driving the car?
My uncle, Patrick.
You were with Patrick?
Yes.
Had you borrowed the car?
Yes.
When?
My mom had given it to us a couple days before Christmas to go to McDonald's because she was cooking.
So on the same date that Miss Connor's car was damaged?
I'm not positive.
Well, that's what it is. A couple of days before Christmas. Christmas comes the same time every year.
Thursday night.
That's December 25th.
It was at nighttime I gave him the car.
She said a couple of days before Christmas, which would have been the time that this happened. Whitney, when you came home, did you immediately tell your mother that you had been in an accident?
No, I didn't.
Did your uncle?
No, he didn't.
Why not?
Because we were afraid that we wouldn't get our Christmas gifts since it was right before Christmas. And we didn't want to upset her.
So how did you hide the car?
Well, at the time, my mom was driving my grandmother's new Dodge Ram truck. So the car was parked in the carport, and she doesn't usually have no reason to go on the side of the house, and she hasn't seen it.
So you concealed the fact that you were in this accident. Who owned the dumpster?
McDonald's.
Did you tell them that you hit their dumpster?
No, ma'am.
And how did that happen that the car hit the dumpster?
Well, as we were driving to the drive-in, we were arguing over the radio station, and he was like slapping my hand away from the radio station so I wouldn't change it. And I grabbed the wheel, and the car kind of swerved and hit the dumpster.
Now, let's leave that for a moment. When you approached Miss Manley, what did she say?
I knocked at the front door. I asked her, had her car been in an accident with my car on the street. She told me she had not driven the car in 4 days. I knew nothing about it. I asked her to come outside and look at her car.
Was she surprised?
Oh, she was very surprised to see the damage on her car. Called Whitney to the carport door. She asked Whitney if Whitney had driven the vehicle. Whitney said yes, she had driven the vehicle.
That's not true.
Don't
That's not true.
Don't speak.
Sorry.
And that she had sideswiped my girlfriend's car on her way to
That is not
McDonald's.
true.
Listen to me.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm sorry, but that's
Just-
not
just-
true. Okay.
What do you think? I don't hear? I heard what you said, and I told you to be quiet. You're going to have an opportunity to respond to him. Go ahead.
Whitney said yes, she had driven the car. She had hit Jill's car on the way to McDonald's. Stated that she was putting on her seatbelt at the time of the accident and had just swerved over and rubbed the car and was afraid to tell anybody.
Whitney doesn't even know how to drive.
Listen to me. It's my job to figure out who's telling the truth and who's not. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
So what did you do?
I told her that I would like to call the police. Patrice said this is not a good idea to call the police because Whitney is not covered by her auto insurance, and she would be more than happy to just pay for the damages if I brought her an estimate. She wrote down her name and phone number.
Let me see it, please.
I left that on the door.
Listen to me. When it's your turn, you will speak.
Okay, I'm sorry.
This is her handwriting.
Yes, ma'am.
And you wrote down your name and phone number.
Yes.
And put it on his door.
Yes.
For what reason?
Because I had to talk with her on what happened because she never said anything when he came. He asked her, I asked her, did she know about an accident to her car? Whitney said no. Okay, after that point, she didn't say anything else. So therefore, while he was there, if I was going to write down all that information, I would have given him my insurance and other papers.
No, that's not true, madam.
Why?
You usually don't get an opportunity for me to answer your questions, but I'm going to do it for you because you seem to be speaking out of turn. And maybe if I explain to you why you would give him your phone number instead of your insurance information, you will understand. Because what he says is that your daughter said, yes, she drove the car, she had an accident, which sounds right to me, that you said, don't call the police because my insurance isn't going to cover her because she's only 15. Give me an estimate and we'll pay for it. And you gave him your phone number. That's a logical explanation. Now, say nothing, because I've answered you.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
As I went to the car, he started calling me a black, all these words. He kicked the car door, and he said I messed with the wrong cracker.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Greg Hardy and his girlfriend Jill Connor say their neighbor, 15-year-old Whitney Manley, sideswiped their car. The couple also claims Whitney's mother, Patrice Manley, ran over Greg's bicycle.
Now, you gave her the estimate, and what happened?
She said that the estimate is too much and that she wasn't going to pay for it, and she told me do what I have to do, and that was it.
Did she come to your house with an estimate?
Yes, she came to my house.
Right.
She said she knew it was me. Sorry.
That's all. There would have been no reason for you to go to her house with an estimate unless she had said to you, bring me an estimate. Right?
Right.
If her daughter had denied hitting your car and having an uncle hit some trash bin on the same day, there would have been no reason for you, unless you're psychotic, to bring her an estimate. Right?
Right.
Now let us hop over to what you did later on the bike.
Sunday, we believe January 9th, she brought the estimate down to Patrice. Patrice said she was not going to pay for it. It was too much money. Do what we have to do. We called the police officers back down because we have a hit-and-run report from the first incident.
I'd like to see it, please.
The officer went down there, spoke with Patrice, stated that since she agreed to pay for it...
Don't tell me what the officer said.
That's true.
Okay.
No, that's hearsay. I
Okay.
just want to see whether the report was made on the 23rd.
When they went to McDonald's, it was on the 23rd that evening.
Let me explain something to you, madam. I don't believe your daughter. I don't believe your daughter didn't drive the car and hit Jill's car. I believe that that's exactly what she did. And I believe that she acknowledged that the day that he... listen to me. I believe she acknowledged that to him.
She did.
And I believe the story that she's telling me now with hitting a dumpster in a McDonald's parking lot is a whole lot of who shot John. Because coincidences sometimes happen in this world. But if there's a more logical basis for what happened, I usually go with the logic rather than the serendipity. Let's move on to the bicycle, sir.
We needed to have our license tag number because we reported to Jill's insurance agency. They needed to have the license tag or some information of Patrice to do a follow-up case. Patrice's car disappears for a length of time. I go for a bike ride on January 20th, the morning. I see Patrice parking in
across the street.
A field adjacent to her house.
Listen to me. I don't want to hear an echo.
Oh, okay.
She's parked in a field, catty corner to her home. I notice that she is running across the street to her door. I pedal down the road. I stop in the street. I said, Patrice, are you not paying for Jill's damages to the car? And Patrice stated, no, she will not pay for the damages.
Are those the words that were used?
At that time, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Then I went over to her car, which was in the field, called Jill at work.
Who owns the field?
It's Broward County public property.
Okay.
Went to the car, called Jill and gave her the auto tag. Patrice was coming back to her car. Then we had a little bit of an altercation.
Was the damage still on the car?
Yes.
Tell me about the altercation.
Basically, we argued about who's going to pay for the car and why she's denying.
What did you say to her, and what did she say to you?
I stated that I can't believe she's not paying for the car. To do such damage while living in the same neighborhood is ridiculous to me. Why would a neighbor act like this? And I told her she was a liar, and she got into her car.
What did she say to you?
I don't remember her exact words, Your Honor.
Did you call her any names?
I called her a liar.
Other than that?
I called her a B word.
Well, that's what I'm asking you.
Yes.
Well, you know, when I ask you what the altercation was, and if what you're going to give me is oatmeal, then I'm not going to believe you.
Well,
do you understand?
Right.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Greg Hardy and his girlfriend say their neighbor, 15-year-old Whitney Manley, sideswiped their car. Greg says, on a separate occasion, Whitney's mother, Patrice Manley, ran over his bicycle.
Did she say anything to you?
She made comments back to me. I don't really know what she said, to be honest.
Do you remember what you said to him?
When I came out from the house, he was on the back of the car on the phone. He had his dog with him, a bulldog this big, while he was on the bike. As he was talking, I did not say anything. As I went to the car, he started calling me a black, all these words. And I didn't say anything to him because I didn't get upset. I just didn't say nothing. I got in the car and I rolled down the window. He came next on the driver's side. He kicked the car door and he said, I messed with the wrong cracker. I then asked him, what is a cracker? He said, I'm going to get you. He proceeded with the dog, he hopped on the bike, and he proceeded to the street. As I'm driving off, he's in front of my car, would not let me pass. I went around him to not hit him or anything. I went around him. As I went around him, I don't know if the dog stopped or the bike stopped, whatever stopped, but his wheel was under my car because he was still trying to get in front of my car. And then as soon as that happened, when my back tire hit his back tire, he fell off the bike, and I stopped right there. I didn't move, left it as is. He said, I got you now. I got you now. So I didn't say anything. I said, no, I got a good Negro lawyer, is what I told him. So he then picked up the phone and called the police. I, as well, called the police. 2 police came out to the scene, as well as the paramedics.
Can I see the police report on that, please?
Yes. On the last page is...
Shh. Were you taken by ambulance from the scene?
Yes, I was.
At his request.
Shh. What difference does that make?
Because there was nothing wrong with him.
Well, how do I know that? I'd like to see the medical report. Is this your injury on your ankle?
Yes.
Looks like it got caught in the spokes of the bicycle.
The front crankshaft, yes.
So now I have a few questions for you, Mr. Hardy. Why did you pull out your bicycle at the same time that she was pulling out her car?
I was on the driver's side door when we were arguing.
Yes.
And then she had not yet started the car, or maybe she had just started the car. I have to go up the street. It's a dead-end road. I have to go forward. We're both have to go forward.
Well, I understand that, but
I
you
go
both...
first.
Listen to me.
Okay.
My friend, you don't have to go forward at the same time. You've just had an altercation with a woman who was in a car that weighs 3,000 pounds. It would seem to me prudent to hang back in the field that is the property of Broward County, play with your dog for 15 minutes while Miss Manley leaves. You've already gotten the information that you wanted, so there's no need to have any further interaction with her. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct.
Unless you wanted to bug her, which you might be able to do if you drove in front of her car with your dog at your side, so she would be going at 5 miles an hour instead of 25 miles an hour until she got to a place where she could turn off. Is that a possibility?
It is a possibility.
Right. So you could have avoided this whole part of the conflict if you just stayed back and played with, what's your dog's name?
Indy.
Indy. In the field for a couple of minutes. Why didn't you do that?
Well, I didn't expect her to run me over in a car, and I was going to the bike path, which is just right past the bushes, so I can get onto the next street. I was already in motion first. I did not expect her to hit me with the car. She came up from behind me after I was already riding down the street.
Well, Mr. Hardy, I don't buy it.
Okay.
The alternative was for her to stop her car and just wait for you to get to where you wanted to go. You could have done that, right? Said, listen, this guy is behaving like a big baby, and he's just trying to get my goat, and I'm going to turn off my car and wait 5 minutes for him to disappear. But you both got a little bit hot under the collar, and your bicycle went over, and the dog, according to you, pulled you over, and that's how you got hurt.
No, the dog pulled me to the right. The police officer stated that my bicycle was left in the middle of the street, and that is why they didn't deem her a ticket on the accident.
They sure didn't, according to the police officers.
And they also
According to the police officer's report, police officer says, based upon the position...
Two police officers. It was two.
What word didn't you understand? Don't talk. This is not a tea party. Do I give you an opportunity to tell your side of the story?
But I didn't finish.
You may not have finished, madam, but I'm getting the information that I need. And so far, with regard to this aspect, you don't seem to be losing. With regard to whether your daughter hit Jill's car, you lost there. Because your daughter drove your car, didn't tell you, and hit her car. And if you believe her that she didn't do it, that's your problem. So you're going to pay for the damage to Jill's car. But Mr. Hardy's going to pay for his own stupidity and not waiting in the field with his dog until you took off. Because I think what he was trying to do was just annoy you. You understand that, Mr. Hardy?
Well, I don't understand.
You understand. I'm glad you understand. You may not agree with me. That's your prerogative. That's your prerogative. You don't have to agree with me. I'm not here. It's not American Idol. It's not a popularity contest. I listen to what, to me, is common sense. It is not common sense that your girlfriend's car was damaged on the same date as she had control of her mother's car. Her mother's car came up dented with a baloney story about hitting something in McDonald's that they didn't report to McDonald's. That doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense that you just happened to get in motion first and felt as if you had to leave the property first while this 3,000-pound car is following you. That doesn't make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, it's usually not true. Let me see an estimate for your car, Jill. Is your car fixed yet? Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,173. That's all. Step out.
Party judge, excuse me, step out. Now, this is case number 597 on the calendar in the matter of Willis versus Banchler. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat.
Miss Willis, you've been taking care of Miss Banchler's daughter for years.
Yes.
She first came to live with you because you were married to her father?
Yes.
He's in prison?
No, he's just not around at all.
Left.
Gone.
And you have how many children with him?
None.
You have children of your own?
I do, right.
But he brought this child into your home?
Right.
When?
August 28th of 2000.
How old is she?
She's 11. She'll be 12 in June.
And you've been taking care of her ever since?
Solely.
When did your husband leave?
In 2002.
Where were you?
In Washington State.
What were you doing there?
I live there.
What you want, Miss Willis, is you want support for this little girl from her mother, because you've been taking care of her, according to you, with no support from her mother.
None.
Ball's in your court, madam. I'd like to hear you.
I have evidence here of money order receipts as well as a letter that I wrote. I have package receipts that I've mailed packages to
I'm not
her.
interested in packages.
Okay.
Forget packages. Packages are not support.
Okay.
How much support have you sent for your daughter since 2002?
There's one for $150 here.
Give me just a second. I have to do this. 150. Go ahead.
There's one here for $30.
$30.
One for $100. One for $150. And one for $50.
Who were those money orders made out to?
They were made out to her father. Only one of them was made out to Oki.
She's never made one out to me.
What was the date of the last one?
September 8th, 2003.
Okay, since September 8th, 2003, you have sent no support for your daughter.
Not cash.
Well, that's all I'm interested in, is cash. How do you support yourself? With
Work.
packages?
No.
Your boss at the end of the week give you packages?
No.
Well, at the end of the week, your boss gives you money.
Right.
Well, that's support. That's what people barter in this country. You give them dollars, and they give you bagels and lox, and milk, and chopped meat, and chicken. You know, that's how we survive in this country. How did you expect your children to survive since September of 2003?
I felt like that was her father's responsibility.
Wrong.
So I sent her to him. He said that he would take care of her, and obviously he did not do that.
Well, when did you find out that he split?
I found out when Judge Judy called me.
You didn't know that before?
No.
Well, that's interesting. So the last contact you had with your child was over 2.5 years ago. Is that right?
Yes.
Why is that? Did you move?
No. I just moved in September. Before that, I stayed in the same house. She was out here last summer also, and I let her at her mother's house, and I let my daughter call over there to speak with her grandmother. My daughter speak with her grandmother to tell her happy birthday. She answered the phone. My daughter said, "Mommy, like, what are you doing out here?" She didn't even speak. You know, she passed the phone to her mother instead of talking to her daughter. I called back the next morning to speak with her. Her mother told me she already left back for Washington.
Listen to me. Since Miss Willis has been caring for your daughter, you provided $480. That amounts to 32 cents a day. Do you think that's enough?
No, it isn't.
What kind of a job do you have?
I'm a custodial.
How much do you earn a week?
$400.
Here you have a child that you expect to exist on 30 cents a day. It's not her responsibility to support your child.
She took the responsibility.
No, she didn't. She didn't adopt your child.
At any point, she could have sent my daughter back to me at any point.
That is the most ridiculous statement that I've ever heard. If you chose to have a baby and not be a mother, that's your prerogative. If you were smart enough to say, listen, I'm not the maternal type. I'm not good at raising a child. You probably can do it better. I'm going to let you do it because I can't, or I'm not interested in doing it. That's honest. But don't tell me that you've got this burning maternal instinct in your stomach and all she had to do was call you and you would have taken your daughter, because anybody who is a parent, they wake up in the morning and they go into the nursery and they say, gee, my kid's not here. You know? They don't wait 2.5 years.
I didn't wait 2.5 years. I've tried on multiple occasions to call them. They told me that I cannot call or send her any more packages.
Listen to me,
That's what
my
her
friend.
father
Listen
said.
to me very carefully. At this point, Miss Willis is a legal stranger to your child. At any time, you could have petitioned the court for immediate custody of your daughter. I doubt that you can do it now. I would think that any judge that would give you custody of your child at this point had to be missing one in his six-pack. However, there was a time immediately after the child left your custody when you could have done that. So you can relinquish custody of your child to somebody else, but when you relinquish custody of your child to a stranger, you pay support. And what Miss Willis is asking for, as far as I'm concerned, is a minimal amount of retroactive support for the child in the time that she supported the child. What she's asking for is $5,000 over the course of 4 years. It's a little more than $1,000 a year. Figure it out. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She had numerous opportunities to get her daughter back.
I've been denied the opportunity to do it, not necessarily by the plaintiff, but by her father.
Well, she's my daughter. I couldn't imagine her even going back with her.
I don't accept the fact that I'm going to have a custody issue with her. She is my daughter.
I will fight to the end to make sure she stays with me forever.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Jones versus Luis Castillo. Step forward, please.
Douglas Jones is suing his cousin, bus driver Dwight Lewis, and girlfriend Mary Ellen Castillo for damages to his home as the result of a fight. Douglas says Mary Ellen and his girlfriend went toe-to-toe.
Mr. Jones, Mr. Lewis is your cousin, according to your complaint, and this lady with him is his girlfriend.
That's correct.
At some time, for reasons that I'm sure you will explain to me, you allowed Mr. Lewis, his girlfriend, and her 3 children to move into your home, a home that you shared with your girlfriend.
That's correct.
And any other children?
Yes, 2 boys.
Whose children are those?
Ours.
The 2 women, for some reason, did not get along.
Right.
And there was an altercation that became physical. And it is your claim that this altercation that became physical resulted in Miss Castillo taking a plate and throwing it against your sliding glass doors, causing the door to break. You want her to pay $600 for the glass door.
Which the glass door that's been chipped, the kitchen window, she broke also.
Ms. Castillo says you're lucky she's not suing you and your girlfriend because she was injured during that altercation. An altercation that was started by your girlfriend.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She starts going, oink, oink, you a pig, oink, oink. And she spit in my face and ran.
So what did you do?
I snatched her up when she was running. And I threw her on the ground.
Lewis and his girlfriend, Mary Ellen Castillo, owe for damage to his house. Douglas says the damage occurred during a fight between Mary Ellen and his girlfriend, Laminda.
Were you present during the altercation?
I know, I was in a room next to the kitchen.
Step up here. What's your name?
Laminda.
Laminda, you have a last name.
Malik.
When did they move in with you?
They moved in June of '04, and the fight took place at August.
It was right after your back
30th.
surgery.
Right, right.
August of 31st of '04.
Correct.
What started the fight?
We were in the kitchen, and the night before we had been fighting the whole night. My dad was just going to California, so he had stopped by, and she was still calling me names the next morning. It was over a washer and just things that she was like nitpicking on, you know, if I did the dishes or, you know, putting dishes to each side of the sink. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was little kid fighting, but she was still doing it the next day. When my dad came over, she stood over in the carport, and she starts like folding her arms and just staring at me, and I'm like, I'm trying not to look over at her, and she starts going, oink, oink. Oink, oink, you a pig, oink, oink.
That's the day before.
Yeah, later on, we were cooking, and she spit in my face and ran. And at the time, she couldn't really talk because she had sores in her mouth. And so, I don't know, to me, that was assault. You know, that was assault to me, that was it. I had it, and I couldn't take it no more. And
so what did you do?
I snatched her up when she was running.
What does that mean, you snatched her up?
By her hair.
So you grabbed her by the hair?
Yeah.
And what did you do?
And I threw her on the ground, and we were fighting. Then her husband jumped in and went to go pull me off.
And that's when I heard the commotion.
That's when he heard the commotion.
And I just had a back operation a couple of days before that.
I'm sorry about that. You feeling better?
A little bit.
Good. Can we get back to the story, please? All right. So now he comes in to try to pull you off. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. And when he started to pull me off, I felt like I was being, like it was both of them. She was still getting her, kicking me and stuff, and I had been threatened by her the whole time.
Well, he's trying to pull you off, so evidently you're on top.
No, pull us apart, actually, because at the time we were both still wrestling on the ground, and I had been told many times, don't mess with Mary Ellen, you know, that she was going to whip my...
Okay.
Sorry.
Where are all the children when this is going on?
They were scattered all over the house. Some were playing out in the yard, and some were in the living room.
The children didn't come in to hear what all the commotion was?
Yeah, a couple of them came to the kitchen door after the fight had broken up. See, they've been nitpicking at each other for a while, especially Mary Ellen, because it seemed like she wanted to be the alpha female, and you don't do that when you're invited to somebody's house. I asked my cousin and them to come up here because Mary Ellen had got kicked out of his daughter's house in Georgia, where they moved into another house, and they said they had black mold and the mold was killing them. So I said, well, come on up and, you know, stay with me. You got 3 kids, so get them in school up here and come up here. I didn't expect her to come over and take over.
I wouldn't try to take over from her.
But evidently she tried.
I want to know how the window got broken.
After the fight went on, I think Mary Ellen was very upset about getting beat because she was promoted.
Come on.
My cousin was promoting her as, you know, this really good fighter. She beat up 2 cops in California and all this kind of stuff. And she was upset getting beat, so she took it out on my house. You know,
Did you see her throw the plate?
No, I heard the plate. I saw her hitting the door with the plate, though, because once I heard the kitchen window break, I was on the phone with my brother, Wolf Fat Jones, and I came in. She was at the sliding glass door, banging it, but she had broke a plate on the sliding glass door already, putting chips
Why
in
were
it.
you hitting the sliding glass door with the plate?
It wasn't broken at all.
Why were you hitting it with the plate?
She attacked me when there was blood all over the floor, and she gave me a scar right here, and I had 4 stitches. I have 2 cuts, 4 stitches.
Sounds like you got the better of the bargain.
And my window still isn't fixed. I have plastic on it. You know, in Seattle, it rains a lot, and it ran up a lot of bills because I'm raising my 2 boys. I'm out on L&I right now, so I don't have a lot of money to fix the window. Labor in the industry. I got hurt at work. I work in a prison. So I couldn't get it fixed. They said that they were going to fix it.
When did they say they were going to fix it?
The next day afterwards, he said, well, let's go to Lowe's and find another window. And I said, no.
Did you say that, Mr. Lewis?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So why didn't you fix it?
He didn't want a Lowe's window. He wanted it professionally done, which would have cost a lot, and we didn't have the money at the time.
The reason why I didn't want him to fix my window, Your Honor, he was trying to, he changed my toilet seat with a crowbar.
Let me see the estimate on the window. As long as Mr. Lewis agreed to fix it, then he's got to fix it.
Well, Your Honor, he tried to fix my toilet bowl and cracked it. I don't want him to...
No, he's not coming back to fix it now.
Yeah, no, I don't want him to fix it anyway. Okay. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Do you have a picture of the patio door?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
I'd like to see it, please.
I took it with a camera phone, so you can still see it good, though.
Quite frankly, what distresses me more than anything else is that you have 5 children there who are witnessing these
That's
2 women in a mud fight on the
window.
kitchen floor. And according to your cousin, at least, you seem to think that it's wonderful that she's a good fighter.
He always did. He always did.
You've heard the fictionalized account. What I will tell you what truly happened.
Go ahead, I'm willing to listen.
When we left Georgia, we left Marietta because the house we were in had too much mold in it.
Tell me about your daughter.
Mary Ellen and the children wanted to go to Washington, to Uncle Dougie's house. So we went up there. He had told us, he had assured us beforehand that Laminda was not living there. He had kicked her out a year before because they weren't getting along.
Where were the children? His children living?
His children were there.
But not their mother?
No. He had hired a nanny for a while.
Is that right so far, sir?
That's correct.
Okay.
He had hired a nanny. She came over and beat up the nanny one day. That's why she had a warrant. That's why after she assaulted Mary Ellen, she had to split. That's why once we broke them apart in the kitchen during the fight, he was trying to get her out of the place before the police arrived.
Mr. Lewis, when you arrived there, was she there?
No, she was not. She has her own place in
When
Bremerton.
did she come back?
When he needed to have his back operation. His oldest son has diabetes. He did not trust either of us to give him his medication. We've never done it.
But she had.
So she had. They had been together since the kids were small until he got rid of her. Well, when she came back in, she was back in her house. She was pushing her around. She even tried to push me around, telling me to get out of my cousin's room.
Which was my room at the time?
No, you slept in the extra bedroom. He would let you come in there once in a while.
No. Okay.
For whatever.
Becoming clear to me, why did you eject her from the house?
She's been gone for at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Well, she liked going out a lot, you know. And
she liked to party.
Exactly, yeah.
And that wasn't good for your children?
No.
Mr. Jones?
Yes?
There's a reason why you tell the mother of your children she can't live in your house anymore.
Right.
I mean, I don't have to go
We
into all the
actually
details.
parted our own ways.
There's a reason you tell the mother of your children that she can't live in your house anymore and she's leaving without her children.
I didn't leave without my children,
Right.
Your Honor.
Right.
I didn't leave without my children. I had my children with me when I left them. I stayed in the shelter with my kids, Your Honor, so...
Somehow the children got back with their father.
Yeah, they did, because I was a housewife with nothing to stand on when I left him.
You have to pay for the window and the door. If you're still together, she looks confused. You understand that you understand that you have to pay for the window and the door.
Yes, Your
You
Honor.
said you were going to pay for it. If she wants to sue her for her medical bills, she certainly is entitled to do that. At some other date, if you had filed a counterclaim with regard to her medical bills or injuries, I would have at least entertained that today, but you had no counterclaim. You have to pay for the window and the door. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $600.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Your Honor, this is case number 451 on the calendar in the matter of Shields versus Germany. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Miss Shields, you and the defendant were boyfriend and girlfriend, and you lived together for how long?
We never actually lived together. We were just boyfriend and girlfriend.
Did you live together?
Well, we dated, we stayed together. As far as I was concerned, we was together and staying together.
According to your complaint, last summer you were living together.
We didn't actually live together. He has his own residence and I have my residence, but we were a couple.
Well, it's interesting. You said that he came home last summer, I think sometime in July. He came home in the morning because he had been out all night and you refused to let him in the house.
Okay.
Is that what you told me? Let me see.
I can explain.
You know, I'm getting older. Maybe I misread what you said. You said on July 1st, 2004, Byron, that would be you.
Yes, ma'am.
Came home after being out all night. He didn't have the key to get into the house and started banging in the door. I refused to allow him back into the home since he refused to stop continually disrespecting our relationship. Well, that sounds to me like he was coming home.
Actually, he had already been told not to come back around. We had already had a falling out and breaking up. I asked him not to return anymore. I told him that, I didn't want to be bothered because of the things he had been doing in the relationship as far as, staying out, other women, different things of that nature. And so I had already called it quits.
So that's in July, and you say that when he came home in July, he assaulted you. So tell me what happened.
He arrived at the house. It was early morning. Him and his friend had pulled up from somewhere, and he was knocking on the door, sitting through the door, opened the door, that he wanted to talk. And I explained to him that, there was no need for him to be there because I wasn't going to open the door and I wasn't going to talk to him. So he needed to leave. He got irate and started, pushing on the screen door, yanking at things, just out of control. And so, I continued to let him know that the door wasn't coming open. He needed to leave or I was going to call the police. So he ran around to the side of the house and he got the garage door open. He kicked it in. He came into the garage. There's another door that allows you to come into the house. He must have got a hold of something in the garage and pried.
Whatever, he got into the house.
No, he didn't get into the house that way.
Did he get into the house some way? I want him in the house
Yes, ma'am,
already.
he came.
I have other things to do today.
Okay, I'm sorry. He came around the front and he yanked the screen door open. He kicked the front door and he came in and he assaulted me.
Well, tell me what happened when he kicked the door in.
When he kicked the door in, he started grabbing at me and started fighting me and he punched me in my mouth.
He hit you in the face?
Yes, ma'am, he did.
And then what happened?
I had already called the police, was bleeding. Police got there. He told the story that I hit him with a glass. So therefore they said that, if it's a dispute between both of you guys are saying that you each assaulted each other so you both could go to jail. I wasn't really prepared to go to jail. I wanted him to leave. And at that time, I just asked them to make him leave. And they did. My mother was going to escort me to the hospital up the street, and they made sure that the situation was calm down.
So you went to the hospital. What happened at the hospital?
Went to the hospital, was there for a little bit. They got me back and started to, stitch up my lip and everything.
How many stitches did you have?
I
in
got
your
6
lip?
stitches.
You have a bill from the hospital?
Yes.
I'd like to see it.
Let me just give her doctor bills and everything.
Now, after that date on July 1st, when was the next time you saw Byron?
Well, he continued to, come around and continued to knock on the door and make little threats and different things like that. But the next actual event where I did actually have to file charges again was January the 4th, this year.
And what
I
happened?
do have videotape. He came over again, banging, ranting and raving. He kicked the front door in that time, which I have videotape of that. And he left. I called the police, made another...
He's not the father of that baby, is he?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, it's not like...
This is just videotape of today, January 4th, 2005, where he's been kicking at my door, just continuing to destroy the door that he's already destroyed numerous times. Byrd, Germany, black, 38, about 180 some pounds. He drove off, just kicked the door, just kicked it all apart. And he kicked my window, trying to kick my window out, but he kicked the screen, broke the screen door. He couldn't get in the door, he just tried to kick, he just keep destroying the property. Just keep destroying it.
When was the last time you had sexual relations with the defendant?
Not since the first incident. We haven't really been communicating.
You mean not since July 1st?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you told me before you started that you had already told him not to come around. Was that before or after you became pregnant?
I guess it was around about that time. It was all pretty close together, you know. Things are just spinning out of hand at that time.
Yana, I was there the day before that.
Oh, yeah, I know you were. And then you took off and you stayed out all night.
We went to the casino.
So?
When we go to the casino, your phone doesn't work in there. And apparently, I guess she was trying to call me and she didn't get through.
Well, when did you
and
tell her
got
that?
upset.
Shh, listen to me.
In the casino, 24 hours.
Am I speaking to you? When did you tell your girlfriend that you were going to be out all night and you wouldn't be coming home?
I didn't think I had to report to her. She knew I was with him and we were going to go do a couple things.
You picked him, my friend.
Yeah.
That same thing I tell him? Oh.
And it's a pattern.
Just a second. Do you and I have to have a...
Okay,
Byrd,
okay.
ask him to come up here, would you, please?
Step up.
Right here. I run this show. Do you understand? You don't speak until I speak to you. If I ask to speak to you, you'll stand up there, you'll tell me your name, you'll answer questions that I ask you. Other than that, I don't want to hear from you. We understand each other?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Perfect.
Yana, when she goes places, she don't call me and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I mean, she does it, and when she gets back...
Well, let me ask you this question, Sir Lancelot. How would you feel if she went out with her friends, or with whomever, and stayed out until 8 o'clock in the morning, didn't call you, and you were home all night waiting for her to come home?
I didn't stay after 8 o'clock.
I'm asking you a question. This is my story. I'm allowed to make up the facts in my story. How would you feel if your girlfriend, who you were expecting to come home, stayed out all night and traipsed in at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning? How would you feel?
I mean, I'll probably be a little upset, but I mean...
Ooh! You'd probably be a little upset, Byron.
I wouldn't double lock the doors and block your phone numbers out from the phone so you can't call or get in.
Well, that should have told you something, my dear. She didn't want to hear from you. She didn't want to see you. She was really annoyed.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Your friend says, what am I going to be friendly with him for? He's an idiot.
Right.
See? You knew you'd come in handy.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Regina Shields says ex-boyfriend Byron Germany kicked in her front door and split her lip. Byron claims Regina injured herself when she swung a cup at him.
Byron, you can't give her a fat lip, my dear.
I didn't hit her on the lip. She hit me with the cup, and then on a moment...
Where did she hit you with a cup?
On my elbow.
What bone did she break?
She didn't break no, she swole my elbow out to there. Oh. But when, the police took forever getting there, but when the police did come there, I told them I wasn't trying to press no charges.
Well, how did her lip get split?
Well, her lip got split when she was swinging the cup. She hit her own self with the cup. And I was pushing her back, and I think when I hit her hand, it hit back and hit her lip. I know it sounds wild, but that's what happened.
It's possible. And it all wouldn't have happened if you hadn't kicked in the door.
I didn't kick in the door, I pushed it open.
Pushed it in, kicked it. Shh. pushed it, kicked it. It all wouldn't have happened if you just went home, let her cool off, go back to the casino, lose another couple of bucks. You could have done a whole bunch of things instead of pushing in the door.
When she gets angry like that, she stay like that for some days.
Then what you do is you stay away for a few days.
But I had something in the house I need to get. And I was
what?
I had some money in there. I wanted to get my money, and then I was going to go and let her do her routine where she'd be hot for a week or two.
Now, what about this video that I just saw of you driving back and forth and then leaving the house?
I wasn't driving back and forth. I was backing out.
Okay, you were backing out. Why were you there?
It's my house. It's my place.
How long has it been since you lived there?
I mean,
Byron! How long has it been since you lived there?
I'm with her 24/7 there. I'm just off and on.
I'm talking about January.
That was, I think that was July on the video. What's the date on that?
January 4th.
Oh yeah, I remember now. Yeah, 'cause I was back. I forgot. So many incidents. You don't understand, y'all. There's so many incidents I can't remember.
What were you doing there?
I think that day. I think I didn't answer my phone, if I remember right. And I was trying to call, and she put me on the block and other stuff. And then when you pull up to the door, we got a little surveillance, and she likes to talk through the camera to you. And it irritates you because you're standing there and can't get in your own place.
I got a restraining order.
I see it.
Yeah. Here's the protection order. That was for what I had to fight at that time.
That restraining order is dismissed.
That was from the first incident.
This one is dated the 4th of January, 2005. It was filed.
What is that? The restraining order?
That's the complaint.
The complaint, yeah.
Mm-hmm. She doesn't want you around anymore, Byron.
I mean, I don't have no problem with it. Like I said, my lease is up.
When was the last time he lived there?
It's been before the first incident.
Before July?
Yes.
Okay, and he hasn't been living there since July?
Yeah, I've been there off and on. I've been there.
What do you mean off and on? You've been there?
I'll come, she'll get mad, and I'll go. I mean, I don't have no problem.
Byron, really, unless you want to spend a lot of time in jail, you should stay away from her.
I'm not trying to spend no time in jail.
What I'm telling you is I'm giving you the best possible advice, Byron. If you don't want to spend a lot of time in jail, you're going to stay away from her, because once you've had a history of domestic violence, eventually a judge is going to get fed up with you and say, Byron, you don't seem to get it. And maybe you'll get it if you do 60 days.
But I've never been charged with, I've never been charged, but everything's been dismissed.
What I'm telling you, Byron, is she doesn't want to see you anymore.
Then she should stop calling me and telling me, what are you doing? You ain't coming by here.
You have proof that she does that?
You're going to ask her, but I know she's not going to tell you the truth.
Right.
She just gets in those moods. Like I said, if I stay out all night, or if I don't answer my phone, or if she thinks she hears women in the background, she's going to go off and she's going to do what she does now. And that's the only reason why the doors end up like that. Before it's that fat lip, I never put my hands on her. She did it with herself with the cup.
You did. You put your hands on her. I'm not saying that you hit her. I'm not saying that with all this scuffling, that maybe the cup hit her lip. That's possible. But for the fact that you kicked in the door or pushed in the door, it wouldn't have happened.
I understand that. One time before, she's got that little bump right there. She had a hammer, hit me with a hammer, swinging a hammer at me. And when I pushed her back, she bumped her head with the hammer.
He's extremely violent. Extremely violent.
Oh, she's extremely
just
violent.
a second. You have a bad temper?
I can.
Yeah, I know. And I know that you do. And I know that when he pushed his way into your house that day, things got hot and heavy. Right?
Really, I'm scared of him.
Now, listen to me. Things got hot and heavy. Is that right?
It's already heated, but I wouldn't hit him because I know he'll hit me back.
Mm-mm.
I know he'll hit me
back.
back.
I've been hit with bricks. 2x4s.
Well, then you're an idiot.
Cell phone.
Then listen to me. Then you're an idiot. If you've been hit with bricks and hammers and glasses and cups and you keep going back, then something's not right. Then your friend says, what am I going to be friendly with him for? He's an idiot. Right?
Right.
See? You knew you'd come in handy.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Regina Shields claims ex-boyfriend Byron Germany kicked in her front door and assaulted her.
Your Honor, can we put him over there with her? She's gonna say I'm an idiot.
Well, don't you think you're an idiot? Listen, if you get hit with bricks and hammers and cups and she's vicious and you keep going back.
Your Honor, it's not like she...
Shh. Does that make you smart?
No, don't make you smart, but she's not beating me, literally beating me, but I'm saying she will hit you with something.
Protecting
She'll
her.
break a curtain rod up and hit you.
If he got...
Just wait a second. So now I've got Byron. I've got curtain rods, bricks.
It gets worse, sir.
Hammers.
2x4s.
2x4s.
And cell
Cups.
phones.
Cell phones.
Yeah, cell phones. House phones. We had to replace the house phone 3 times because she wants to beat you with them.
Byron, you're right. Go over on that side.
Nah, I'm just saying. I mean, I be trying to give him advice too, like he just need to leave her alone. You know?
See? Wisdom.
Yeah. You know, she's complaining about the doors. I mean, I have damages too. She tore up cars. She done kicked doors, and I got a Hummer. She beat it with an iron, like you iron. I was going to pull out the driveway, then bam.
Ask him why he stays.
If I ask him why he stays, we may turn into an R-rated program. Why do you stay, Byron?
I mean, I love her to death. She's a good girl when she want to be, but what I'm trying to say to you, I mean, she does things too. I mean, I bought a car and I only had it 3 days, and I got my cousin. I know it sounds strange. My cousin hit me on the expressway, knocked me to the guardrail. I only had the car 3 days, and she said, "That's what you get for not giving me no money." I mean, that's not right. She was in the car with me. We both could have ended up seriously hurt.
He's trying to sound money hungry. That's what he's trying to say.
Well, maybe you are and maybe you're not. Anyway, Byron, I don't know whether she loves you or not, but all I can tell you is if you don't stay away from her, there's going to be a problem. And you're going to have this baby, and then there are going to be a whole host of other problems. Do you understand? Because you're going to want to see this baby, you're going to want to visit with this baby, and unless you learn to control yourself, and she learns to control herself, because my sense is that she knows how to get your goat. But you can't touch her.
No, she kicked his car before. He just bought a car.
Listen to me. I believe she's got a bad temper.
Can I say something, Judge Judy, please?
Sure.
I know when a bad situation is getting ready to get out of hand, the only thing I ask of him is just leave. When I get angry, I can easily go and do things like that to his property when he does to where I live, but I don't do that. I just ask that he leave, and if he doesn't leave, I call the police.
Listen to me. I know you sound as if butter would melt in your mouth. What he's saying is that when you're not here in a courtroom situation, you can have a really hot, volatile temper. That's what he's saying. And I have a tendency to believe him because I think that he doesn't do the right thing, but I don't think he's full of baloney. And I think you are a little bit. I'm not saying he does the right thing. He doesn't do the right thing. Staying out all night, not the right thing. Not keeping in touch with you, not the right thing. If he's fooling around, not the right thing. But you know how to get to him so that when you bring the decibel level up to a certain point and then you say, now you have to go home, Byron. Well, you've already got him all worked up. Her lip got split, and her lip wouldn't have gotten split if you hadn't punched in the door. So you're going to pay for all those medical bills, which come to which come to about $630. Better find somebody to fix your door for about $500.
Yana, I didn't hit her in the lip. I shouldn't have to pay.
I don't care whether you hit her in the lip or not, but for the fact that you pushed in the door, there wouldn't have been a scuffle and her lip wouldn't have gotten busted.
All she had to do was answer the door. He could tell you. He was right
Just
there.
a second. She didn't want to answer the door. She doesn't have to answer the door. There is nothing written in the Constitution, Byron, that provides that she has to answer the door because you knock on it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,130. I suggest you stay far away from each other unless it's pursuant to a court order of visitation for this new blessed event that's coming next month. Thank you very much. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Yeah, this is case number 438 on the calendar in the matter of Water versus Boris. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat, please.
Mrs. Water, the defendant is your former husband, and you have 2 children together.
We have 4.
I only knew of 2 boys. You have
2 boys and 2 girls.
In any event, one of your boys was in need of a car. So you called your ex-husband because you knew that he had a car that was not running, an old car, 40 years old, a classic car. And you made the following agreement with him, according to your complaint, that you would invest your money in getting the car up and running if he would give the car to your son. What's your son's name?
Luke.
And Mr. Boris said, okay, go get it. It's laying over in my father's property because it's not running. So far correct?
I went down and prepped the car. We pulled it out and cleaned it up. My son.
But it wasn't running.
It wasn't running.
And you took the car, and over the course of the next several months, you put the car in running order and invested, according to you, almost $4,000 in the car. And at some point, there came a problem because you couldn't title the car and get the insurance on the car and turn it over to Luke because there was some problem with Mr. Boris.
Yes.
And you ended up buying your son another car.
Right.
And now you're suing him for the money you invested in his car.
Yes.
So I'm going to turn to you, Mr. Boris, and ask you some questions, sir.
Sure.
First, tell me what year car this was.
1964 Falcon.
And how long have you had it?
30 years.
And according to your answer, it had been your intention always to give the car to one of your sons.
Correct.
So it's clear that you and your former wife had this agreement that she was going to fix the car and you were going to give the car to Luke.
Right.
And she did fix the car and invest thousands of dollars in it.
No, she said she had it fixed, but it still didn't run right. After spending that amount of money, it didn't run right.
She spent thousands of dollars on the car.
Correct.
How many thousands of dollars do you have documented that you spent on the car?
$5,293.
So what happened, Mr. Boris?
When they picked the car up, I only saw it one time after they picked the car up, and I had asked on several occasions to be included in the repair of the car because that was our dream. That didn't happen. Her new live-in boyfriend did the repairs on the car with my son, which upset him greatly because that was our thing, always.
And Mr. Boris, if that was going to be your thing, then why didn't you say, listen, if you pay for the parts, we'll leave it at my father's house, and I'll work with Luke on it, you know, whenever I can. Why did you, according to you, put it in shape so that they could move it?
She made the offer of, if I give the car to Luke, that she would pay for the repairs.
Right. Well, that's what I said.
She didn't want to include me in that, though. She said she would, but once they got the car, I never saw it after that. They took it somewhere else to a friend of his who builds race cars, and she wouldn't tell me where it was. I had asked several occasions.
How did you ask?
I'd like to go see the car. I'd like to see where it is, the progress of the car.
And what did she say to you?
No, it's being worked on.
Well, that's not a nice thing to do. Why did you do that?
Well, I don't recall ever saying that. The car was at the mechanic's house for a month while he was rebuilding the engine and doing major work to it, and then we brought it home, and it was parked in front of the house until the police came by and told me that the registration was not valid, even though I had plates and tags. So we had to move it off the street. So we did park it at a friend's house who has some property.
Well, what do you need to get the car in a state where it can be registered and have proper tags?
Just a signed statement from him stating that he has given the car to my son, but he refuses to do that.
I have a thing from the DMV. My son has the proper paperwork. The reason that the DMV kicked it back out was because she tried to add her name to it. Her name
How
is
old is Luke?
16.
He can't register the car himself.
He can become the legal owner, though.
No, he can't. He can't. She needs an insurable interest in the car in order to get insurance on it. Anybody who wants to insure a car has to have an insurable interest in that car. Otherwise, you could take out insurance on my life, for instance, and then I wouldn't feel safe. Do you understand? So your 16-year-old son cannot own this property alone. He has to own it with a parent, with an adult, or with his guardian.
More than willing to be a co-owner with him.
Well, that wasn't your agreement.
And the agreement wasn't to make her the owner either.
No, she's not supposed to be the owner. But if she...
There on the paperwork, it's trying to show that she's trying to put her name on the title.
With Luke?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so what's wrong with that? She's just paid $5,000 to fix it.
Because my son told me once she takes ownership, because she bought him a new car. She went and spent thousands of dollars more for a new car rather than to continue to invest in fixing that car. And my son has told me that once she becomes the owner, she's going to sell it. And that was never the intent.
Miss Water, is it your testimony today that if you are successful, that it is your intention to give this car to your son, or is it your intention to sell it?
My intent was to get the car running for my son. I tried to do something nice because I knew he wanted to give the car to one of his sons. So I said, you give him the car, I will pay to have it up and running. He failed to follow through on his part.
No, no, madam.
He refused to sign a bill of sale.
He did not want to sign a bill of sale to you and Luke. He says, I don't have a problem with signing a bill of sale over to myself and Luke, but not
after
to...
I invested the money.
What?
It could be in my son's name, but as you state, it cannot only be in his name.
Correct. And he said, I'm not making my former wife a gift. I'm making a gift to my son. So he has no objection to giving you a bill of sale so that you can act as emissary to have the car registered and insured. Correct?
Yes.
That's not unreasonable. That was your agreement. Your agreement wasn't that he was going to reimburse you.
I have a younger son whom also I had planned on, once he reaches the age, to pass that car on to him.
Listen, you can only pass the car to one child. You made an agreement with your former wife. Your agreement was that she would fix the car. She would pay to fix the car, and the car would be Luke's.
Right. And
It is only by virtue of the fact that the law proscribes a 16-year-old from owning a vehicle because he can't insure the vehicle that I come up with this solution for you, sir. And she is the guardian and custodian of your 16-year-old son, so you cannot sell this car without her permission. Are you following what I'm saying?
Yes, I would
Good.
turn the car after Luke is 18.
No.
It's a family heirloom. It's something I want to keep in the family.
Mr. Boris, listen
Yes.
to me very carefully, sir. You made an agreement with your former wife.
And Luke.
And Luke. And you will, and I will issue an order, that you will do a bill of sale to your son and you as co-owners of this car. And you will deliver that bill of sale to your former wife, giving her the ability, because that was your agreement, to register the car and insure it. If Luke chooses to drive it, that's fine. If he wishes to insure it, that's fine. If she wishes to keep that car on her property for the next 2 years until Luke is ready to take it himself, and I assume, sir, that you want to maintain good relations with your son when he's 18, I assume you're going to sign the car over to him.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
Perfect. That's the solution. So within 5 days from today, you will deliver that statement to your wife along with the agreement that when Luke turns 18, he will become the sole owner of the car. Is that reasonable?
That's reasonable.
Understand? Good. Thank you. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I'm very frustrated. I put a lot of money into that car, and I wasn't able to get it registered so my son could use it, and he needed another car, so I have spent more money than I needed to.
She let her new live-in boyfriend do the work on the car with my son.
They're just allegations. I gave him plenty of opportunity. The only thing is he wanted me to fund his time with his son.
It had been something that my son and I had always planned on doing together, not some guy that she has living in the house.
He makes everything difficult.
It's been this way for years.
I just hope we can put it behind us.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of McLeish versus Kramer. Step forward.
21-year-old department store manager Ashley McLeish is suing her former friend, retail salesperson Angela Kramer, for her share of a trip to Las Vegas. Angela claims Ashley and her witness coerced her into going.
How old are you, Miss McLeish?
21.
Miss Kramer?
21.
You used to be really good friends, and you claim that Miss Kramer owes you for her share of a trip that the two of you took to Las Vegas.
Correct.
And Miss Kramer says she had a lousy time, right?
Yeah.
And in addition to having a lousy time, she never agreed to pay you back.
That is incorrect.
Miss Kramer, what do you do for a living?
I'm a student in a retail sales.
Where do you work?
I work at Mervin's.
You live by yourself?
No.
Who do you live with?
I live with my father.
In his house?
Yes.
Miss McLeish, what about you? You're a student?
Yeah, I go to Golden West College, and I'm a retail manager at Mervin's, and I live with my parents.
Okay, good. Now, you went on vacation?
Yes.
For how long?
3 days.
You were going there for what reason?
Because it was our 21st birthday, so me, her, and my witness wanted to have a good time, and on our 21st birthday, Vegas is like the place to be.
Good. So, you asked her to go with you?
Yes.
She said?
Yes.
And?
So I looked online for prices for hotel and airfare because we wanted to fly there. And after...
Did Miss Kramer say that you should put these charges on your credit card?
I agreed to put it on my credit card, and the agreement was that she would pay me back before we left on August 1st.
Your Honor, that's not...
Just a second. She didn't pay you back?
No, she hadn't paid me back.
What did she tell you about paying you back?
she said she'll get back to me. So I figured it was like she'd pay me back when we got back because we're having a great time. We both had fun. We went out to dinner, we went dancing, we went to clubs, we went got VIP everything. We didn't have to pay for anything. And all she did was...
Why not?
Why not? Because the month before we had made a connection. Our friend knows a lot of like security guards, and he knows a lot of bouncers, so we got to get in free. We didn't have to wait in like 2-hour lines to get in the best clubs.
Okay, according to you, you had a good time.
Right.
Came back, she didn't pay.
Right.
Go.
I never agreed to pay. When she said that the hotel, the price of it, I said that's way too high and I'd rather just stay at my family's house because I can stay there for free.
So why didn't you?
Because when I told them that, they said, just don't worry about it.
And somebody dragged you on the plane?
Well, you know, it's my 21st birthday. I was trying to distance myself anyways, and that's why...
I'm asking you, somebody dragged you on the plane?
No.
Well, if you didn't want to go, why did you go?
Because they said, just don't worry about the costs.
Well, why would you think that they would take you away on vacation?
Because that's what they said.
I don't believe you.
Okay.
I don't believe you.
I actually have pictures, if I could show you, of her having a good time dancing.
I don't care whether she had a good time or whether she had a lousy time. It's irrelevant to me.
Your Honor, I was trying to get out of the vacation because I didn't want to go with them. And when they said, just come on, please go, I decided, fine, I'll go. Because they said, don't worry about any of the costs, don't worry about anything,
Your Honor,
just
may I
go.
say something, please?
Step up. Tell me your name.
My name is Lori Irigoyen. And we spoke to her the night before we left, and she said, yeah, she couldn't afford it. But then we said, okay, we've still put it on a credit card. You need to pay us back, or you need to pay Ashley back. She didn't want to do that. Well, you can't.
Well, what did she say?
She said, no, I don't have to pay you back. If I don't go, I shouldn't have to pay you back.
Exactly.
Why did you call the night before?
Because I had talked to them recently before that also, because what I was doing was I was talking to my backgrounds investigator, and when I was going through looking at the lie detector test and polygraph...
I have no idea what you're talking about now.
Well,
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
What it is I'm going for a future career in the criminal justice, and so I was talking to a backgrounds investigator, and she was showing me the polygraph test that you would have to be taking, and it had to ask questions about your friends and what you know about your friends, and that can make you fail and make it so you can't get into a premier area.
So
I
just
had
a minute, please.
I had decided that I didn't want to be around any negative influences where I know that things are going on.
So why did you go?
Because I made a mistake. I thought...
Good. Yeah, that's what you say. You say, I made a mistake. And when you make a mistake, what do? Pay! Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $296.45.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, Judge Judy, you may step out. Yeah, this is case number 443 on the calendar in the matter of Aristizabal versus Morales. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat, ma'am, please.
Mr. Aristizabal, what kind of a business do you have, sir?
Do an auto repair business, ma'am?
According to your complaint, Mr. Morales came into your shop to have his car fixed. You did a diagnostic workup on his car, told him he needed transmission to be done.
Yes.
He decided at some point that he didn't want you to do the work on his car, and he went to leave. You told him he couldn't leave until he paid you for the diagnostic work, which was $85.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, at some point, and you're going to tell me how this happened, he tried to leave. You tried to stop him. Tried to stop him by having one of your employees close a gate. He plowed through, damaged your property and a sign. You want him to pay for all that damage. Mr. Morales says that you had no right to try to restrain him,
correct,
that you did no work on the car, that when your gate closed on his car, you caused damage to his car, and he is counterclaiming.
Correct.
What day did Mr. Morales come into your shop?
On 11/16, Mr. Morales came. I do have an exhibit.
What time did he come, sir?
4 o'clock, 4:30.
And what time does your shop close, sir?
6 o'clock, Your Honor.
Did Mr. Morales have an appointment, or did he come in
No, he walked
without
in.
an appointment?
He walked into my shop by a friend. He was recommended by a friend of his.
Had he had work done by Mr. Aristizabal himself?
No, Your Honor.
So why did he make this recommendation to you?
He said to me that this was his uncle's shop and that he'd give me a good price, an estimated price on rebuilding my transmission for
Is that what you needed, a rebuilt transmission?
Yes, Your Honor.
How did you know that you needed a rebuilt transmission, Mr. Morales?
I had went the day before to another mechanic shop, and I have the receipt here. It shows that I paid for diagnostics, and it states there that my transmission needed to be rebuilt.
Now, when you came into Mr. Aristobal's shop, sir, did you tell him you needed to rebuild the transmission?
Yes, I did, Your Honor. Well, actually, when I first got there, he wasn't there. He showed up about 45 minutes later.
So at that point, it was between 4:45 and 5:30.
About 5:30, when I finally got in contact with him around that time. He showed up. He asked me...
Who's Giovanni?
He was Giovanni at the time. He stated his name was Giovanni. He asked me what was the problem with the car. I stated my transmission needed to be rebuilt. He asked me, how do I know? I told him because I had another diagnostics done. So he then got in the car and test drove the vehicle.
How did he test drive the vehicle, sir?
He drove it up to the garage door, and then he also reversed it back. He opened the hood. He looked in it. The vehicle was on the whole time. And then that was basically all he did. He asked me, follow me into my office. He asked me for my information.
May I see the piece of paper that you have, sir? Is that the information that you filled out when you came in?
Yes, this is exactly information exactly as to what...
Mr. Morales was sitting in your office.
There is 4 copies, Your Honor, just to refresh you. There's 4 copies at the beginning of the estimate. That was the final estimate, what it says, everything that I found with the vehicle, everything that said. He also asked me...
You're not answering my question, sir.
That's the piece of paper that he filled up, yes, Your Honor. And he got an estimate of that.
No. Mr. Morales did not sign this document that you have handed to me.
Yes, he did.
No. He did not sign this as it is written here. You filled this out after he left. So I want to see what he signed when he was there, not after you wrote everything that you wanted to write on this document about what happened later.
I gave him a copy where it says computer diagnosis, ABS not working, to check and advice. $85 on the top of it, as you can see. The final invoice,
this invoice is meaningless to me, sir. So then let's get over this, because we're not going to waste any more time. We're not going to waste any more time.
Fine, Your Honor.
Tell me what you did with the car, Mr. Aristobal.
When it came off of the car, I did the diagnosis. I put it what is called a modest.
Tell me what you did.
I did the
want to know.
diagnostic.
Listen to me.
Would you please let me describe, Your Honor?
No, I want you to answer my question, Mr. Aristobal.
I final invoice did. I told him exactly what it was wrong at 5:30. He said he was going to take it somewhere else to have it repaired somewhere else. He wasn't going to do it then. I asked him he must repair. He must pay me for the diagnosis that I had done.
I didn't hear anybody doing a diagnostic, sir. Just because you wrote diagnosis doesn't mean you did anything. Now, you want to tell me exactly what you did or produce an employee who performed any work on the car.
It says right there on the invoice, Your Honor.
Mr. Aristobal, that's what the whole dispute is about. Mr. Morales says you didn't do any work on his car.
So he signed an invoice saying to have the car diagnosed.
This invoice, sir, is worthless. You wrote this invoice after the whole incident happened.
Did you see that I did it after, Your Honor?
Sir, you can't produce something.
I am producing. That's the honestly true, Your Honor.
Mr. Aristobal.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
We started arguing. He was, being loud. I got loud also.
He was a little bit high on drugs, I will imagine, because he was very,
This man was not high on drugs.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Mechanic Orlando Aristizabal says customer James Morales owes for skipping out on a bill. James says Orlando didn't perform any work on his car.
Who is this person?
That is a customer that happened to be there when he damaged his car, and he's here to testify. He damaged the car with the...
So this is a witness that you brought. Did you bring a witness who did any work on Mr. Morales' car?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, did anybody else take your car away from you and put it up on a lift or a machine?
No, Your Honor.
When you told him that you weren't going to do the job, what happened?
Well, what happened was, from after he drove the vehicle, we got off the car, we went into his office. He asked me for my information. I signed the form. He said that he was going to call me the next day to let me know exactly how much it was going to cost. that it was mandatory for his company to do a diagnostics. So after all, I agreed with it. I said, fine, fine. I agreed with it. I left the premises.
What made you change your mind, sir?
Overall, the car is in my name. It's my car, but that's my wife's vehicle. I have a 99 Tahoe, my truck, which I drive to work and back. She uses the Infiniti to go to work and do her errands. The car that was getting fixed was coming out of her money. She said no. She decided not to. She told me, well, we're wasting our money if we're throwing our money out the window to get another diagnostics done if we just got one done yesterday. So from there...
So you went back inside to get your car?
Right. When I went back to the premises, we pulled into the vehicle. She pulled in where the gate line is, right on the premises line, where the gate would close, and she stopped. I got off the vehicle. I walked up to the garage. I seen my vehicle still in the same place. The key still in the ignition. The hood was still open. The door was open. And I looked for Mr. Giovanni, which he told me his name was at the time. I went into the office. I did not see him. I came out of the office. He came out of the back. He appeared out of the back. I then told him, we're not going to leave the car with you. After all, I'm going to go ahead and take my car. He told me, well, you can go ahead and take the car, but you have to pay me my diagnostics, my $85 for the work that was done. I told him what work. I told him there was no wires connected to my car. I see no computer next to my car. I see no mechanic next to my car. I see no tools. The car was not on a hoist. It was not moved. So therefore, I felt that there was no work rendered to my vehicle, and I told him that I was not going to pay him.
Did you see his car on a lift, sir?
No.
Did you see any wires attached to his car being diagnosed?
Well, I was only there for like 5 minutes.
The answer is no.
No.
Go ahead.
So from that point, I told him I told him that I wasn't gonna pay him. We started arguing. He was being loud. I got loud also, and from there I had my wife and my daughter in my truck waiting for me. I didn't want to argue with him, so I gave him the paper back. I shook his hand and I told him, look, Mr. Giovanni, if you feel I owe you, you have all my information.
Sue me.
You call me, you sue me, you do whatever you have to do. I'm taking my car.
Does that sound familiar, Mr. Aristobal?
I saw him after he came back. He wanted to leave. I told him he must pay for the diagnosis, which had been authorized.
And he said, I'm not paying for it.
He said he's not paying for it. I can call the police. He was a little bit high on drugs, I will imagine, because he was very,
This man was not high on drugs. This man was not high on drugs. Listen to me, sir. Mr. Aristobal, put the pictures down, sir. How did you stop him? Because according to your complaint, you said you tried to stop him. How did you try to stop him, sir?
I don't need to stop him. I did not. So help me God, Your Honor. I did not stop him. He left, taking my gate out of it and my dumpster, here in the dumpster, and here is the pictures of it.
Step up. You were a customer?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been a customer there?
For like 1 year.
You saw this incident happen?
Yeah, I only saw when he left.
Did one of Mr. Aristobal's employees close the gate?
No, ma'am.
Was it closed?
No, it was open. It was open like a car's distance.
And so describe to me what happened, sir.
Well, the young man got in his car and he just like bailed out fast, like he was stealing the car. He was like scared for some reason. He just left real fast and he hit the dumpster and the gate.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. From that time, when I paid it, I told him I wasn't going to pay the $85. I gave him the receipt back because when I left, he gave me a receipt. And I told him I'm not going to pay you. I was already backing up. He then asked me, look, at least pay me $45 for my labor fee. I then replied to him, I'm not going to pay you anything. I continued to back up. He started yelling at his. There was about maybe 10 employees there, and if I may say, Your Honor, he was also an employee here. The witness is also an employee. If you notice his hands, they are greasy.
Do you work for him? Do you do part-time work for him?
I don't work for him. I paint cars. He's a mechanic shop.
What were you doing there that day, sir?
He was fixing one of my cars.
Fixing one of your personal cars or your business cars?
No, one of my cars that I'm going to sell. Yeah, I try to get cars fixed so I can sell them.
Sit down. Go ahead.
From there, he yelled at his employees, don't let him leave, don't let him leave. I'm calling the police, don't let him leave. Well, my wife was still parked in the same place, if I can point out. She was parked here, right on the gate where the gate closes. And one of the employees started closing the gate on her vehicle. My daughter was in the car on the passenger side, behind the passenger back seat, and where the gate was closing onto. My wife then exits the vehicle and asks Giovanni, what's going on? What's going on? Giovanni replies, he's trying to steal my money. He needs to pay me. You guys need to pay me my money. She got in the vehicle. She backed up. She got onto the street. I then continued to back up. When they closed the gate on me, when it hit my vehicle, if you can see, if I can present some pictures to you. If you notice where the red arrow is, that's where I came to a complete stop at the dent that it made.
I want to see all the pictures, Byrd. There's Mr. Aristobal's also, please.
This is the customer's car.
So what's this?
The car was scraped from the front all the way, from the back all the way to the front from the yellow fence. If you can notice the yellow paint on the fence.
If you look, Your Honor, on the tire on the driver's side, on the first tire, you would see that the trash can was actually pushed onto
the car.
On the driver's side.
You see the blue paint from the picture.
And both of the mirrors were knocked off.
Did you see who did that?
I couldn't really identify who did it. However, I know the male who was closing the gate was a white, tall, Caucasian male. And I told him, what's going on here? Because he's closing the gate on the side my 2-year-old is sitting on in her car seat. He says, I'm just doing my job. I'm just doing my job. Mr. Giovanni at the time, who had presented himself as Giovanni, was instructing his workers in Spanish that by no means let us out. Mr. Giovanni at that time said that he was going to call the cops. However, Cop Ernst did call the dispatching group to see if any call was dispatched from that location, and it was a negative.
Who's Giovanni?
This is, I named my shop after my son.
When somebody comes in and asks for Giovanni, your name is Orlando.
I am Giovanni's DBA-S. Yes, Your Honor, that is true. I'm Orlando DBA-S Giovanni's. That's how my fictitious name is.
You have estimates on your car?
Yes, we do, Your Honor. We have an estimate that was done a couple of days after the incident.
The next day.
The next day.
Which is the 17th. It's also dated.
Do either of you have a police report?
Yes, we do.
We have a copy of the preliminary police report that was filed that day.
If I may...
Do you have a copy of a police report that you filed, Mr. Aristobal?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'd like to see it, please.
If I may, Your Honor.
Shh.
Okay.
No. What year car is this?
It's a 1993 Infiniti G20.
Well, the cost of painting it is $3,000. It's
Right.
worth more than the car.
Exactly.
Right. You paint cars, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
How much do you charge for a really good paint job?
It varies from $2,500 to $500.
And what about to take out all the dents on a car?
Depends how many, what kind of dents.
Here you go. It's not often that I have an expert witness that I can question. You can stand up, sir.
It could be fixed without changing any parts.
Great. How much could you fix it for, sir?
I can fix this probably for $1,500.
You know what I find interesting, Mr. Aristobal? That Mr. and Mrs. Morales filed their police report the date of this incident, the 16th.
Right after.
You didn't bother to file yours until the next day.
When I went there, they told me I won't be able to file the same day because simply they have filled out one. And when I got there at the Foothill Police Division, they told me I must wait until next day so I can file a report. And I went back.
Are you telling me that a police officer said you couldn't give your version of the events on the same day?
Yes, because it was one taken already. Yes, Your Honor, that's
but the next day it was okay for them to take it.
Well, I went over it again.
So what you're telling me is the next day they said...
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Aristobal, you did the wrong thing, sir. There was a dispute. Whether you were right or wrong with regard to the dispute, you had an option. And your option was to let this gentleman and his wife leave.
I did.
And no, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't. To let this gentleman and his wife leave, causing no problem, deciding to sue him. You had his name and address. You felt as if he owed you $85. That's what you do. You said, no, I'm calling the police. The truth of the matter is, if you had called the police at that very moment, Mr. Aristobal, you would have been the first one filing the police report. You didn't call the police at all.
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Not that day you didn't, sir.
So help me God.
No, you didn't, sir. Because then you would have filed the police report before them, and if I listened to your logic, when they came out speaking... Then when they came in, the police would have said to them, you can't file a report today, Mr. Aristobal already did. You have to come back tomorrow and file your report. I know exactly what happened. You don't have to be a genius to figure out what happened. There is no indication whatsoever by you or any witness that any work was done on Mr. and Mrs. Morales' car. You were annoyed that they weren't leaving the car. You told your employees to close the gate because you weren't going to let him take the car. You frightened his wife by your actions, and you're going to pay for his car.
And my daughter.
And he's not going to pay for any damage that he did to your gate or your dumpster because he had no right to try to keep him inside, which you did. You have recourse. This is not the Wild West. Judgment for the defendant in the amount of $1,700. You can have your car fixed for that amount. Otherwise, you'll have to total it.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step up. Now, this is case number 419 on the calendar, the matter of Lane versus Thomas. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Mr. Lane, Miss Thomas was a tenant of yours.
Yes, that's correct.
And it is your claim that she owes you for rent certain property that she took from the apartment or house that she had rented when she ultimately moved out, and that she also owes you for filing false charges against you in her application for a protective order. You claim that Miss Thomas and her family are professional squatters.
Yes, I do.
Which means that they go into people's homes, they rent them, they pay rent for a while, and they stop paying, and since it takes very often 6 months to a year to get them out, they don't pay rent, and they go from place to place, and that's a scam.
It is a scam.
And you're prepared to demonstrate to me that Miss Thomas and her family have a history of doing the same kind of thing to other landlords.
Yes, I do.
And I'd be interested to hear about that. In any event, when did you rent? Is it an apartment or a house?
It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, upper middle income with a
When?
pool. February, I rented her the home. She signed a lease on February 27th.
Of 2004?
She moved in on 2004. She moved in on March 15th, 2004.
Who moved in?
Valina Thomas, and the premises were leased to her and her daughter. In addition to her moving in, she moved her brother in.
No, just a second. Who signed the lease?
Valina Thomas and Thomas.
Is that your husband?
Yes, ma'am.
How much was the rent, Mr. Lane?
I asked for first, last, and the security deposit, $1,250, Your Honor, $1,250.
I'm going to ask the questions.
Yes, ma'am.
You're going to give me the answers. If I need for you to expand, you're going to do that
Thank you.
for me. $1,250 a month.
$1,250 a month.
And they gave you first, last, and security.
That's correct.
Okay, so they paid for March, and it was a year lease?
The check for March, Your Honor, was
No, was it a
dishonored.
year lease?
It is a year lease, yes, Your Honor.
The check for March was what, sir?
The check for March was dishonored by the bank. She alleged that a girlfriend had given her a $569 check.
Okay, so the
But
check for March was bounced.
Yes, Your Honor.
Did she ever pay March rent?
She did, Your Honor.
Okay, when did she pay March rent?
She paid March rent prior to April 15th.
And she paid April's rent?
She did pay April's rent, Your Honor.
And what about May?
She did not pay May's, June's, or July's.
Did she and her husband and the rest of the people that she moved into the house, did they live there May, June, and July?
Yes, they did, Your Honor. They lived there through August.
Through August?
Well, actually, they had abandoned the property, and I lived out of state, and I repossessed the property with a writ of possession on July 29th.
I just want to know,
Yes, ma'am.
when was the last time they lived in the house?
I wouldn't know. I didn't come back to the property until August the 7th.
Okay, when was the last time you lived in the house, Miss Thomas?
July 31st.
Fine. Can I see your rent receipt from May?
Did not pay the rent from May till June. Did
Why?
not.
You lived there in May?
Yes, ma'am. The rent was due on the 15th of every month.
Right.
I paid April's rent from April 15th to May 15th.
Right.
We notified Mr. Lane that my husband's job was transferring him. First, we notified Mr. Brown when we paid April's rent that my husband's job was transferring him to Sarasota, Florida, which is 2 hours away from where we were living. He said, just let me know the date when you're going to be moving. Told Mr. Lane called. He said, I'll tell you what. He says, you paid half of May's rent, and I will return your security deposit if you're out before June the 15th. However, when I asked for a letter stating the fact, everything changed. He sent me a 3-day notice to vacate. Then he sent me another 3-day notice from a realtor company.
So what?
A month later.
So what? A month later, you were supposed to be out. Why weren't you out in June?
Because he didn't follow his agreement either.
Why weren't you out in June?
Because our house wasn't ready that we were moving to. And
then why didn't you pay rent?
We told him we were moving, and he said that...
Just a second, I don't understand something. Just a minute. Miss Thomas, If what you're telling me is that you moved and that's why you didn't pay rent, that's fine. But what you're telling me now is that you told him you were moving, but you didn't move because your house wasn't ready and you didn't pay rent. Just a second.
Okay.
Let's get to objective facts.
Okay.
Ms. Thomas.
Okay.
Who is this?
This is my daughter, Heather.
All right. Is she a witness?
Yes, she is.
Fine. Then, unfortunately, she has to stay here.
That's fine.
If you live in an apartment or a house that doesn't belong to you, pursuant to a lease, if you live there, you have to pay rent.
I agree.
I don't want to hear any baloney about why you didn't pay rent.
I never said I didn't know it. I owe him for May and June.
Oh, well, that's not what you're saying here.
I have it.
Just a second. I don't see in here that that's what you say, that you owe him for May and June. Let me see. In June, we could no longer afford the premises. That's what you wrote in your answer. That's what you swore to. And also, we found out that my husband was being transferred in the latter part of July.
Yes, ma'am.
What does that have to do with May and... Stop playing with your papers. So that has nothing to do with May and June's rent.
I agree. I mean, we owe May. We owe May and June.
Let's move on. We informed the plaintiff that we would be moving, and Mr. Lane was not very happy. He said that if we paid half of May's rent, he would refund our deposit when we moved. However, the money we had given him when we moved in was enough to cover up our rent until July, so we weren't going to pay him anymore. You got a whole bunch of excuses here, and you can't seem to keep your story straight. You lived there in May, you lived there in June, you lived there in July, and you didn't pay rent. Nowhere in your answer do you say, well, I do owe him for May and June.
I've always said I owed him, even in the court doc.
Would you do me a favor, please, Byrd? Would you show this answer, this sworn answer that she signed to her, and ask her, maybe I missed it, you know, I don't know how I scored in reading. Show me in your answer where you say you acknowledge that you owe him for 2 months' rent.
I never acknowledged that I owed him for 2 months' rent.
Until now. Oh, fine. Fine, then we get it now. Now you owe him for 2 months' rent.
Well, I also acknowledged when we went to the Byrd County Courthouse that I owed him for 2 months' rent.
Just a second. I'm not talking about any place else that you went when he tried to get you evicted. I'm talking about small claims court, which is where you are. So you forgot to put that down in your answer that you owe him for 2 months' rent.
Okay.
Is that right? You forgot.
Yes,
fine. You owe him for 2 months' rent.
Yes,
so your rent was $1,250 times 2 is $2,500. So that you owe him. That you acknowledge you owe him.
Yes,
is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You've got to pay your bills, madam. If you don't pay your bills, bad things happen. They turn off your lights, they turn off your water, they turn off your electricity. That's what happens when you don't pay your bills.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Larry Lane says ex-tenant Kay Thomas owes for 3 months' rent. Larry says Kay is a squatter.
Now, when did you start eviction proceedings against her?
I attempted to start eviction proceedings in May.
So you already knew that this was a lost cause with these people?
I didn't believe it was a lost cause, Your Honor.
Well, then why would you choose to evict them?
I put a 3-day notice on her door precautionarily.
Sir, they owe you $2,500 for the 2 months' rent.
What about July, Your Honor?
Shh. Just a minute.
Okay.
Now, did you get first month's rent and last month's rent?
I did, Your Honor.
Just a second. Listen to me. The last month's rent would have been July. Is that right, Mr. Lane?
Yes, ma'am.
What about the security deposit?
Well, Your Honor, there was extensive damage to my home and legal fees.
How much were your legal fees?
$691.
Okay. And what kind of damage was done to the home?
Well, Your Honor, the screens on all windows were damaged. All the blinds were damaged.
Do you have any photographs?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
I'd like to see them, please.
I also have receipts for blinds.
How did these windows get broken?
Can I see those pictures? I haven't seen them.
Sure.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have pictures also.
I'd like to see them.
Before we moved in and the day we moved out. Would you like to see those?
I would.
These are the 2 screens that he's claiming on the kitchen. That's the 31st. You can see that those are not broke. Living room blind, kitchen, and the other one that we admitted to. These are the 2 that we admitted to. as far as the blinds go. The dates are on them, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, so I have broken blinds.
And can I clarify something really quick? He said that me, my husband, and my daughter moved into the house. I have two daughters, and he met them both. He also came 2 days before he left for Bay City, Michigan. He came to my house, my last residency, unannounced, but he came.
You mean the new place?
The old place. Prior to moving to his residency, I lived in Cocoa Beach, and he came to my residency 2 days before I signed the lease with him.
Yeah.
He's talking about me moving my brother and my sister-in-law in. He met them. He knew them. He knew they were going to be staying there with us for a month or so till they found their own place.
Mr. Lane?
Yes, ma'am.
Defendant acknowledges at this juncture that she owes you 2 months' rent. I would take that and be happy.
What about the furniture she stole?
Now let's get to the furniture.
All right.
Show me pictures of the furniture.
I can't. I can only show you receipts, Your Honor, because I'm
What
having
furniture did you
photographs.
take, Miss Thomas? You indicate that you took some stuff from the house.
I didn't take anything. I sold it.
You sold it?
Yes, ma'am. I have receipts to that, where I sold it to and how much I sold it for.
Let me see.
The last 2 pages.
Miss Thomas, why would you sell property that didn't belong to you?
I sold the dining room set and the bedroom set.
Why
Actually,
would you sell property that didn't
it was
belong to you?
We had an agreement in the lease for me to purchase it.
You mean you purchased it? Did you purchase it?
No, we did not pay it in full. No, sir. No, ma'am.
Okay, so you had a provision in the lease if you wanted to purchase it, but you didn't purchase it, and yet you sold it.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you can't do that.
I understand that. I did it out of anger because of what he done. He tried to have my electricity cut off.
Your Honor, I have a subpoena from Florida Power and Light showing that I didn't turn her power off.
You tried.
But not only had she given him a false security number to get her power, she bounced checks on him, and that the power was turned off. And here it is, Your Honor,
Can I see it, please?
along with the subpoena.
Fine.
She also gave him a false address where she was moving to send the final bill. I corrected it for Florida Power and Light so they can collect from this deadbeat.
Shh. You owe money?
Yes, I'm paying them $75 a month. Yes, ma'am.
For money that you owe them?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you gotta pay your bills, madam. If you don't pay your bills, bad things happen. They turn off your lights, they turn off your water, they turn off your electricity. That's what happens when you don't pay your bills. Listen, you can't sell property that doesn't belong to you.
I understand that.
You didn't pay your electric bill. That's why you're paying $75 to make up what you owe them.
Your Honor, her lights were turned off June 26th. Okay.
Not interested in that. How much is this stuff worth, sir? Dining room table with a hutch, a wicker bedroom set,
King-size bed,
king-size bed.
armoire.
How much did she agree to pay in the lease for the things that she sold?
She was going to pay $50 a month, but never consummated that.
No. Mr. Lane.
She was going to pay
What-
$50 a month and the balance on conclusion of the lease. The
Okay,
lease agreement shows
$50
that.
a month
Paragraph 22,
times
page
12 is $600.
8. Yes, Your Honor.
And the balance upon the termination of the lease, what was the furniture sold for, Mr.
The
Lane?
furniture was sold for $1,250
$1,250 in total.
total.
Is
Yes,
that right?
Your Honor. Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Then that's what you owe him.
I understand that. Never said I didn't know him for it.
Yes, you did. Show her the answer. She said the stuff he left in the house was a bunch of junk.
I was referring to
Just a second.
I was referring to the refrigerator.
Show me in here where
It's
you
not in that
acknowledge that you owe him money for the furniture that you sold.
It's not in there, ma'am.
Right. It's not in there.
I was referring to the refrigerator.
Mr. Lane,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like you to give me whatever proof you have that the Thomas family are squatters and scammers.
Please.
So far, I would tend to agree with you.
Your Honor, I did a background investigation, and I should have done this prior to it, but my grandson was in a hospital. This shows that she was evicted. This is a background investigation from the internet that shows 6 bad checks and cable fraud.
You got anything else?
Yes, I do. She currently is in Bradenton, Florida, in a diversion program for first-time offenders for bad checks. And I don't know about anything else, Your Honor. I just knew
Is that all
this-
correct? Are you
The
currently-
bad checks. Yeah, a bad check. Yes, ma'am. It was the first time offender where I wrote a bad check. Yes, ma'am.
It was the first time you got caught.
No. No, it's
It was the first time you
that-
got caught.
Your Honor, this account...
I don't understand you, Miss Thomas. I don't understand why you believe. How old are you?
19.
May I?
Well, you know, she's not a baby, so she can be here.
Your Honor,
Listen.
this account was written on a closed account, which she alleged somebody had given her a check.
You already gave him a bad check.
May I
Come
see
on.
that
Closed
account?
account.
May I see that account, please? Yes, ma'am. And I took care of it. As soon as he told me that it had not been paid, I went and gave him the money. Took care of it.
Okay.
Took it out of the
Can I
account.
see it?
So
Your
it
Honor,
wasn't
she
that
told
he...
me that the check had bounced and yes, ma'am.
Mr. Lane,
Yes,
how long
ma'am.
have you been a landlord?
This was the first time I rented a piece of property, and I must have had stupid written right across my forehead.
That's true.
I understand. Your Honor, I have one other thing I'd like to say briefly.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, there was property in my garage, and when I reported my furniture missing to the police, they said it was a civil matter. They couldn't do anything. But the property that I had in my garage was a side-by-side refrigerator, a Craftsman lawnmower, and a power edger. She disposed of that equipment. I went back down to the police department. They sent me out to her house to inspect again to see if the property was moved indoors or in the backyard. And as I tried to go in, she had me arrested for battery.
He was not arrested, Your Honor. He was never charged.
She filed charges.
I have police reports.
Did you get your refrigerator back?
No. And the
you
other
get your-
landlord,
You didn't get it back. Did you get anything back that was in the garage?
no, I didn't get anything back.
Where's
Not
the
even
stuff?
the keys to the house.
Where's the stuff? I'm not talking about the keys. Where's the stuff?
Can I explain what led up to that?
No. I just asked you where the stuff is.
It's gone.
What do you mean it's
Mr.
gone?
Brown.
It went to the refrigerator ferry. Where did it go?
We got the junk guy got it because it was no good. The gasket on it was broke. It wasn't keeping the air in. It was leaking water. He left it. He did not want it.
Just a second. When did you get rid of it?
July the 8th.
Well, if it was bothering you, why didn't you get rid of it when you first moved in instead
We
of
were
July
in
the
the
8th?
we were in the process of cleaning out the house and getting everything done. We had talked to Mr. Brown. He said he was given to you, whatever. Mr. Lane didn't want it. Do whatever you wanted to do with it.
Did you say that to her?
No, ma'am.
We
Of
even
course
cleaned
not.
it out.
Of course not. Well,
Your Honor.
what you're supposed to do is
also-
I'm speaking.
Yes,
What you're
ma'am.
supposed to do is stop making excuses.
I'm not making excuses,
Well,
Your
you
Honor.
did. You made excuses. You made excuses to
But
me.
he's saying I destroyed his house. He inspected the house on
I'm
July
not
the 21st.
talking about the inspection of the house. I'm talking about several things. I'm talking about the rent that you owed him.
I agree.
For $2,500.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm talking about the furniture that you agreed to buy, which you didn't buy, which you sold.
Yes, ma'am.
So you owe him $1,250. I'm talking about the merchandise that was in the garage that you disposed of the same month that you moved out. The same month that you moved out. You didn't say to me, listen, he had all this junk in the garage and I was paying for the garage, so when we moved in, I got some junk guy to come over and get rid of it. You disposed of it the same month that you were moving. Ms. Thomas, you did the wrong thing. And what you're supposed to do, put that down. What you're supposed to do when you do the wrong thing, especially if you have a child here, is you're supposed to say, I did the wrong thing.
I did. I mean, I did that.
Well, you didn't admit it to me in the answer. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. Next step out. Yes, this is case number 468 on the calendar in the matter of Broussard versus D'Alessandro. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Have a seat, ma'am.
Mr. Broussard, this young lady used to be your landlord.
Yes.
And according to your complaint, she embarked upon a course of conduct of harassment, filing false restraining orders against you, ultimately evicting you from the place where you had lived for some period of time. You want to be compensated for that.
Right.
And Ms. D'Alessandro said everything that she said was in her applications were true, and you were a terrible tenant. You also have a claim against her for slander. You say that when you ultimately applied to other apartments to rent, and they called her to verify your tenancy, she said bad things about you, so it made it virtually impossible for you to get another apartment.
That's correct.
Now, I gather, Mr. Broussard, that you lived in this house. It was a house?
She lived in the house up front. I lived in an apartment in the back.
And you had lived there prior to Miss D'Alessandro moving in because a relative of hers owned the house, and you were the relative's tenant.
Right.
Who was the relative?
My mother.
And what was her name?
Loretta Wallace.
When did you first move into this apartment in the back?
It was approximately 7 years ago.
Did Loretta Wallace ever bring eviction proceedings against you?
Never.
When for the first time did you file notice to quit or pay against the plaintiff?
That would have been in early October 2003.
What happened?
After I had received title to the house, or during the time the transfer was going on, I was in the process of sort of getting my ducks in the row to start making renovations on the apartment building.
What apartment building?
There's the house in the front is where I live. There's a 3-unit apartment building at the rear of the property. And
you live in one of those units?
Right.
Go ahead.
Everything was going smoothly as far as I was concerned, and I had actually started to make renovations in one of the other apartments and had told Mr. Broussard and his girlfriend, I said, look, you know, I'm going to be doing the same thing to your unit at some point very soon, and, you know, just to let them know what was going on and that I didn't forget about them.
When you were making the renovations in the other unit, where were the tenants in the other unit?
That unit was vacant, and the renovations were very extensive.
Go ahead.
So at the end of September, I was at home and I was watering the lawn, and Mr. Broussard came and knocked on my screen door and was complaining about the fact that water was getting on his girlfriend's car. And I told him, I said, you know what, just a minute, I'm on the phone, I'll be with you as soon as I can. He insisted, and he became belligerent, and I stepped outside of the kitchen because I was going to go to the back and simply turn the water off just to get him off of my back. And then he engaged in this verbal tirade in my face so close that he started to spit on me. And it was at that time, it was like, okay, you know what, that's it. You know, I had to do what I felt I needed to do in order to ensure my personal safety, because I was living on the property at the same time, and I didn't feel comfortable with him being there anymore, let alone the fact that he and his girlfriend were going to have to move anyway, because I was going to have to gut the unit to renovate it.
Got it?
Got it.
I didn't have any problems with them, and neither
Let me
did my
ask you this
mother.
question, sir. You want to give me your version of what happened?
Yes, I do, ma'am.
On that date in
Part
October?
of that was true. She did have the sprinklers up real high, and she was home. I went and knocked on the door. I said, Maria, you're soaking our cars. And she looked at me and she said, well, you should have moved them, and slammed the door in my face. And I was shocked. I guess I was holding the screen door, and I must have closed it too hard, and I really upset her. Next thing I know, she comes flying out the door, getting in my face. Now, she's a woman, challenging me as if she's a man. We exchanged a few words, a few unpleasantries, I won't lie about that. But I never put my hands on her, and I called myself, so you know what? Let me get away from her before she says I did something to her, before somebody sees me arguing with a woman. As I'm walking away, her boyfriend comes flying up, and I'm walking away going to my house. He comes and gets in my face, and he says, well, basically, Derek, you and Denise have to move. I said, who are you? He said, that's my girlfriend.
Would you stand up straight, please?
I said, well, this doesn't concern you. I said, I can stay here as long as I want to. You don't have anything to do with this property or this matter. I said, get out of my face. So I turned and I walked in the house. And me knowing her, the type of person she is, I knew she was going to do something treacherous, you know, by the first of the month. We decided we're going to make sure this rent is due exactly on the 1st. I don't want any funny business with her. Well, we paid our rent on the 1st. She accepted the rent. I have a canceled check. I have a receipt.
Can I see it, please? Mr. Alessandro, did you speak to an attorney before you decided that Mr. Broussard and his girlfriend were going to have to move so that you can do renovations?
Yes, I did, ma'am.
And did the attorney tell you that you can't have them move just because you decided to do renovations on their unit?
No, he did not.
He should have.
Well, and that was
He should have.
Ma'am, that was not the reason why I proceeded with the eviction proceedings against
yes,
Mr.
it was.
Broussard.
Just
no,
a
it
second.
was not.
Oh, yeah, it was.
No, it was not.
The coincidence of you renovating one apartment and then saying to me a moment ago, and he was going to have to move anyway because I was going to totally gut his apartment. Oh, no, he wasn't.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Oh,
but that
no,
was
he
not
wasn't.
the reason why I filed for eviction against him.
That's
It was
the exact
not.
reason, because that's what the lawyer probably told you.
No, he did not
There has
tell
to
me
be a
that.
reason for you. Ms. D'Alessandro, I want to tell you something. You think you're smarter than I am?
I do
you
not,
are
ma'am.
not. You are not. And I've been a judge for a very long time, and things usually happen in a rhythm. And let me explain the rhythm to you that is factual. Fact is, he lived there since 1997. Fact is, between 1997 and 2003, neither you nor your mother before you had occasion to file any kind of charges against Mr. Broussard or his girlfriend. Fact, The same month, according to you, that the title passed to you in the house, you decided to get your ducks in the water and remodel the unit behind the house. And according to you, he came and got in your face on that day, and you decided you had to do something to get him out because he was going to, according to you, quote, a moment ago, he was going to have to move anyway because I was going to gut the apartment. That's what you just told me. Those are the objective facts. And what you would have me believe is that all of a sudden this man who had been a reasonable tenant for 7 years became a psychopath.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You just said to me the reason I gave him the notice to leave was because I felt unsafe. Well, what is it? Rent or unsafe? Think hard. Think hard. Rent, unsafe.
And later today.
I was pushed to the ground like this. I felt feet kicking my head and my neck.
And when the cops arrived, what happened, sir?
They cuffed me for drinking and being underage.
He was drunk.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Derek Broussard says former landlord Maria D'Alessandro had him falsely arrested for violating a restraining order. Derek also says after he moved out, Maria slandered him to potential landlords.
On October 1st, he gave you a check, dated September 30th.
Yes.
I have a receipt for it.
Yes,
Did you
ma'am.
file a notice to quit because he had not paid rent?
No, I was advised to file the 3-day as well as the 60-day based on the fact that Mr. Broussard was habitually late in paying his rent over a period of time.
Just a second. So what you're telling me is that you filed a notice for him to vacate the premises, not because he was late in October, because he wasn't late in October because he paid you the rent on time.
Right.
But because it started to bother you that before that he hadn't paid his rent.
It didn't bother me. It didn't bother me, and it didn't didn't bother my mother.
So what did you file a complaint for?
I filed the complaint because I felt unsafe with Mr. Broussard being there after he verbally attacked me.
Then what I'm saying to you is, you're not following me, madam. What I said was, he didn't bother anybody before, didn't bother your mother before, didn't bother you before. When he started to bother you was in October when you decided to make renovations on the apartment. Those are the objective facts.
I did not make the decision in October, ma'am. I had started the work on the unit earlier in that summer, approximately June or July.
On his unit?
No, because they were still in it. I couldn't do it.
Right.
But that is not the reason why I filed eviction against them at all.
I don't believe
My mother, I have evidence in here that shows that prior to 2003, Mr. Broussard had a record, a pattern of actually tendering checks that came back in SF.
You just told me, madam, you got to keep your story straight. I'm speaking and you're not listening. You just told me that the reason you gave him the notice to quit was not because of rent. You just said to me the reason I gave him the notice to leave was because I felt unsafe. Well, what is it? Rent or unsafe? Think hard. Think hard. Rent unsafe.
The rent was not the issue.
Okay, now the rent was not the issue. Is that, I'm speaking, the rent was not the issue. Can I see your notice to leave? Do you have it?
It's in there. And here's the...
Just a minute. Shh. Well, you certainly say here that the reason you gave him the notice, madam, was because of rent.
What document is that you're looking at?
Take a look.
I will say, in my defense...
Just a second. That's...
Yes, ma'am.
Pay attention to me. What's the reason you give in the notice for him to leave?
The attorney's office filed this on October the 15th. They made an error, and I have a note in here that verifies that.
Give it to me.
The note?
No, give me the papers back.
The detainer.
Give me the papers back.
The attorney's office acknowledged that they filed the unlawful detainer in error.
When did you file your application for a protective order?
October the 24th.
So, October 15th, they acknowledged they made a mistake, and they withdrew that.
No, not on October the 15th. Well, they did not acknowledge that they made the mistake. I did not know that the unlawful detainer had been filed until the morning of October the 21st, and I have a copy of that paper in here. Oh, okay. Now, on October the 21st, when I called the attorney's office to say, what are you doing? I called you on October the 2nd to tell you that they had paid their rent in full and to remove the 3-day and maintain the 60-day.
So you told them that on the 21st of October?
That was the only time I knew that the unlawful detainer had been filed.
Listen to me carefully. So now we get to this objective data. The objective fact is that on the 21st, because you knew that you couldn't get them out because they had in fact paid their rent, right?
That's not...
3 days later, you filed a protection order against them. Now, let me see the allegations on which you based the protective order. Let me see it.
Restraining order. Is that what you're asking
I
for?
want to see the underlying allegations where she filed for a protective order. Underlying allegations. Can I see it, please? Description of the conduct. October 2nd, defendant observed plaintiff banging loudly on her back door. Garbage left in the area surrounding plaintiff's residence, and the defendant observed burning rubber in the driveway. October 3rd, he called you a name. October 17th, broken beer bottles left in front of her garage. So all of these things happened, and you filed this 3 days after you told the lawyer you better withdraw that because he paid his rent.
That's because I was hoping he was just going to leave me alone.
Madam, you are full of baloney.
No, ma'am, I am not.
I believe that the reason you got him out and the reason you filed for a violation is because there was no other way to get him out. He had been a tenant. He'd been a tenant for 7 years. You wanted to renovate those 3 apartments, and the only way to get him out was to have him arrested, which is what you did. Judgment for the plaintiff, and the amount requested, $5,000.
That's not the reason why. Good, congratulations, you got your money.
Thank you, Judge Judy.
Good, you got you some money now.
I was trying to get over it, but something inside of me told me, don't let her get away with this.
It's breaking beer bottles. Okay, so what? I cleaned it up.
38 years, been a law-abiding citizen, and for her just to say, take him away, like I'm a piece of meat.
It's a lot more pleasant place to live now.
She's had ex-boyfriends vandalize her property, so she felt like she could blame it all on me.
He can move on. I've moved on.
Oh, man, I'm so happy. I love Judge Judy.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Ward versus Ortega, step forward, please.
Office manager Kelly Ward is suing fellow concertgoer, 19-year-old student Filiberto Ortega for falling on top of her during a show. Kelly says a drunken Filiberto gave her whiplash.
Miss Ward, you went to a concert, a musical concert?
Yes, I did.
And Mr. Ortega was also a guest at that concert, paying custom. Don't get smart with me, sir. Is your claim that Mr. Ortega got drunk? While he was drunk, he fell on top of you and injured you.
Correct.
You want to be compensated for your medical bills and for your pain and suffering.
Yes.
And Mr. Ortega said that that's what happens when you go to a concert. He doesn't think that you were injured. He was drinking that night, but he doesn't think that he was so drunk that his falling on top of you, which he hardly remembers, was as a result of his being intoxicated. Is that right, sir?
I'll admit I was wrong for drinking that night, and I learned my lesson, definitely learned my lesson.
Well, let's start with Miss Ward. What concert was it?
It was a Dave Matthews concert on October 5th.
And tell me exactly what happened.
Well, I can tell you what I remember. My witness can kind of finish it up for me. Her and I were sitting in our seats at the time. She was on the end. I was sitting right next to her. All of a sudden, all I knew, I felt something in the back of my head. I was pushed to the ground like this. I felt feet kicking my head and my neck. And from there, it was kind of a blur.
Then you can pick it up from there. Tell me your name.
Lori.
Lori what?
Langdock.
What did you see?
At first I felt something hit the side of my arm, and I thought maybe she's trying to get my attention. So I turned and looked at her and saw her slump forward in her seat, and I saw the defendant's legs are on top of her head and her neck, and his body was to the seat, in the seat to her left. And I had to kind of pick his legs up off of her, and he kind of fell farther over. Then she sat up just a little bit, and I just kept asking her if she was okay, and then he pushed a little bit past her and he kept falling back on the both of us, so I had to kind of help hold him up until he got right in the stairwell there, or in the stairs, and then I let go of him and went back to her.
You have any medical bills?
Yes, I do.
Can I see them, please?
Sure.
Okay, I'll hear you.
Where do I start? I really don't know where to start.
Start when you arrived at the concert, sir.
Right at the concert.
Who brought you?
We actually walked to the concert from a friend's house of mine.
Had you been drinking before you got to the concert?
Yes, ma'am.
What were you drinking?
Vodka.
Tell me what happened to Miss Ward.
I fell over like a couple rows of people, And I was unaware that I heard her that bad. Cops rolled up, and that's the day the music died for me. So.
What do you mean the day the music died for you? What does that mean?
It's a reference to a song.
What happened to you, Mr. Ortega?
What happened to me? I fell. It's simple.
And when
as
the
that.
cops arrived, what happened, sir?
They cuffed me for drinking and being underage. I got in trouble for resisting arrest, and that's all pending right now, so I don't know if I can really talk about it, but...
No, you shouldn't, because you behaved badly.
May I say something,
Sure.
Your Honor? When we came back, he was actually passed out in his seat at that time.
He was drunk?
Yeah.
I couldn't control myself, and I apologize if I hurt you.
Well, I'm glad you said that, sir, so that I don't have to scream and yell at you and make you appear foolish, which, believe me, if there's anybody who knows how to do that, I am a pro.
Can I also mention one other thing? At this time, I'm unable to lift my 3-year-old daughter. I'm unable to lift a basket of clothes, my 5-pound cat. So
all as a result of being stupid.
And I don't know how long this is going to last. You know, I have a 6-month record for chiropractic, but it could go past that.
Did you see this chiropractor before this
No,
incident?
I've never seen a chiropractor before.
Judgment for the plaintiff, as requested. I've calculated your expenses, and they will amount to almost $4,000 by the time you're finished. Your request is for $5,000. It's more than reasonable. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may...
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Eden versus Neely. Step forward, please.
18-year-old student Desiree Eden is suing her father's girlfriend, EMT tech Susan Neely, for the return of payments on a Dodge Neon she repossessed. Susan is countersuing for the vehicle's unpaid balance and insurance payments.
Who are you?
I'm the dad.
Why don't you stand up, sir? Okay. Miss Eden, while this gentleman, who's your father, is not a defendant, I'm going to have him stand here because I think it's important. Miss Neely is your father's girlfriend. They live together, is that right?
Yes.
According to what I read, a couple of years ago, you needed a car. You were living with your father and his girlfriend. And Miss Neely agreed to buy a car. You were underage, so it was in her name. And tell me what the agreement was.
The agreement was that I paid the car payments on the car as it came. I paid the $1,000 down plus the car payments on it.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
From when to when?
From November 2003 to November 26th of 2004.
And you made the payments every month?
Yes.
Who paid the insurance?
I paid it when she asked for it.
The agreement was that you would make the monthly payments?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Neely, is it correct that Miss Eden made the monthly payments on the car from November of 2003 to November of 2004?
Her last payment was on November the 12th.
So the answer would...
The day after Thanksgiving, she decided that she was going to move out and move in with her boyfriend. And I told her she could not take the car because that car was in my name. It was titled in my name. And I would not let her have it because if something should happen and they go out and have a wreck and kill somebody, it comes back on me. So I told her she had to leave the car with me, and if she came with the balance owed against the car, then I would sign it over to her.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Just a second.
She did not come up with the $2,201.93 that was owed against the car, so I would not allow her to have it.
Well, wasn't your agreement. Miss Neely, that wasn't your agreement.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
It's really dumb to hitch your wagon to a star when you're 18 years old, especially when the star isn't such a star.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 18-year-old Desiree Eden says her father's girlfriend, Susan Neely, illegally repossessed her car. Susan says she took the car away when Desiree moved in with her boyfriend.
When did you turn 18?
May 23rd.
Of 2004?
Of 2004.
Once she turned 18 and continued to make the payments, and you continued to accept the payments, that contract that you had with her, that verbal contract, was ratified, which meant it became a contract. That contract's terms were very simple. You make the payments until the car is paid off, I'll sign the title over to you. That was your contract.
But she's no longer making payments.
She stopped making payments because you would let her take the car.
Correct.
Your Honor.
What we're talking about is an anticipatory breach, which is you said to yourself, I'm not so sure whether she's going to continue to make the payments on the car if she's not here and living with the boyfriend, so I'm not going to let her have the car. That's what you really said.
Well, our insurance company told us that.
Hey, don't tell me what your insurance company told you. The insurance company cannot interpret a contract that you had with her.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Also, when it was told to her when we decided to get the car for her, it was also told that she would stay in school, and it depended on her grades. That way we could also use the car. If she starts slipping a little bit, we could take the car away from her.
She hadn't slipped? Sir, she just decided to move out and move in with her boyfriend.
Exactly. But after that is when she lost her job. She quit school.
I did not,
But just a
Your
second,
Honor.
just a second. Mr. Eden, at the time she left, she was making the payments,
Yes.
she was in school,
Yep.
and she had a job.
Yes.
You can't anticipate what's going to happen afterwards. Where's the car now?
It is at my house.
They have it for sale for $2,500.
Car is hers.
Okay, who pays the rest of the...
She does.
Okay. Does she pay that to us or to the car dealership or...
Are you working?
No, ma'am.
Well, how are you going to make the payments on the car?
Well, I just moved back into my mom's here recently. I have to get another job.
Where's the boyfriend?
Right here.
How come you moved out of his house?
We both moved into my mom's house. We were having too much problems in Monette where we were living with him. He had assaulted me shortly after I moved out.
Who did?
My father. I had to get a restraining order against him on December 8th. He assaulted me on December 7th.
About what?
About he was mad that I moved out and I was living with him.
Does he work?
Yes, he does.
What does he do?
He is
Don't
in
look down.
factory.
What?
Factory.
And what about you?
I'm in school, high school.
How do you do in high school?
I do really good. I have good grades.
You do really well.
I do really well. I try.
I have a report card from when she left.
We don't need you to do any negatives.
Okay, I just sort of...
Listen to me. Is he in school?
No, he's not.
How old is he?
22.
Do you have the ability to do better in school?
Yes, ma'am.
It's really dumb to hitch your wagon to a star when you're 18 years old, especially when the star isn't such a star. Unless you get an education, it's going to be a struggle your whole life. You want to struggle your whole life?
No, Your Honor.
You know what I'm saying to you?
Yes, ma'am.
You look like you have the potential to do okay. Unless you recognize your potential, you're going to be clawing at life your whole life. I think that taking back this car is probably going to be a terrible burden for you, financially, because you don't have the money for it now, right?
Right.
So you put in $4,000 into the car in the year that you had it, in payments that you made.
Correct.
Let's say you had to rent a car, a basic car, for the year. That would have cost you about $2,000 or $166 a month, basic. So you have the following choice. Either you assume full financial responsibility for this car, or I'm prepared to award you half of what you're requesting, which is $2,000, which might give you an opportunity of going and finding a good second-hand car that wouldn't give you any further payments. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
And then Ms. Neely and your father can go and sell this car. If they make a profit, fine. If they don't, fine. You think that's a smarter idea for you?
Yes, I do, because I don't know
I do
what they've
too.
done. I'm not sure what they've done to the car since I haven't had it.
Well, I don't think they've purposely done anything. They're trying to sell it. All right. You can't anticipate a breach of a contract. You had an agreement with this young lady, and she fulfilled her end of the agreement. She used the car for a year, over a year. She understands that that's wear and tear on the car. I'm awarding her $2,000. Be smart. Buy wheels so that you can get yourself to and from school and to and from a part-time job. Do well in school. Think a little higher than what you know. You know, think a little higher, think. Can I reach my potential, and what is that?
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
You don't have any children, do you?
Oh, no.
Right?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And you don't plan on any for a while, right?
No, ma'am.
Very smart. Make sure Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $2,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She bailed her ex out of jail.
She was pretty much the only person I knew that would help me.
Gave him a place to live.
Yeah, I wanted to be with her and wanted to, be a family again.
And how did he repay her?
He was arrested for domestic assault the very next day.
Against her?
Correct.
You were foolish?
I was just in love.
That's what happens when you fall in love with a bum.
Judge Judy.
I was just giving her my paycheck.
No complaint. Subsequent to your divorce, you made 2 loans to him.
Yes, ma'am.
Both were for court fines or tickets or whatever.
Yes, ma'am.
And neither of those loans have been repaid.
No, ma'am.
The defendant says that you did, in fact, advance him the money in form of a loan, and he paid you back. And he says that the second chunk of money that you gave him to pay tickets or something so that he could get his license back was just a gift, and he is also prepared to establish that. So, when were you married and when were you divorced, Ms. Kranz?
We were married on October the 10th of 2003.
And when were you divorced?
The divorce papers are stated April the 27th of 2004.
And when was the first loan?
June the 21st of 2004. And I do have where he signed a note that he would pay me back the money.
Okay, I'd like to see it.
Okay. Also attached with that is the way that I proceeded to get the money. He was in jail at the time for not paying fines and restitutions.
Just a second.
Things
Wait a second.
stolen.
Shh. Okay, were you in jail in June of 2004?
Most definitely.
When did you get out of jail?
Like the beginning of July. She came and posted a bond for me. It was a $2,200 cash bond.
And you signed this that you owe her $23.33.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
With regard to that, you say you paid her back.
Yes, ma'am.
How come you called your former wife for the money? You were divorced?
We were planning on trying to work things out. We've been talking on the phone while I was in jail. I would have been there probably 4 years if I had not made that bond. She was pretty much the only person I knew that would help me.
Okay. So you were pretty desperate.
It was probably more than desperate. I mean, I wanted to be with her and wanted to, be a family again. But I mean, yeah, she was the only place.
What were you in jail for, sir?
I had stolen some things, and I had violated my probation for that by not paying my fines and court costs and all that.
Now, show me, Mr. Lubersbeck, that you paid her back.
What I have is my check stubs that my bosses wrote me for that period of time, and I have my supervisor at the job that was there on 2 occasions. She came and personally got my check. I signed it and she got it. And then when I went back to jail, she picked up my last paycheck, and he can testify that he was there and saw that.
Your Honor, I will state that when we were together, he would contribute to bills, but certainly never repaying any of the money that I had loaned him.
Did you ever go and get money from his supervisor?
There was one occasion where I picked up a paycheck. After he had went to jail in August, I picked up an $84 paycheck from his job. He
only one paycheck?
Yes, ma'am.
It's the only time you went?
Yes, ma'am.
Step up. Tell me your name.
Nebojša Kovacevic.
What kind of work do you do?
Construction.
Were you his supervisor?
Yes, at that time.
Tell me what you know about these paychecks.
I know at 2 occasions that she came on Fridays and he signed the paychecks, and gave it to her. And the last, when he went to jail, the last paycheck, my brother gave it out to her because he called from jail and told me to give her the last check.
Now, what about the 2 other times that you say you saw him?
Yeah, yes, I saw him sign the paycheck and hand it to her.
Where were you living at the time, sir?
When I got the loan, I got out of jail, moved directly in with Ms. Krantz.
How long did you live with her?
It was not very long.
Tell me how long. When did you get out of jail? You got out of jail
it was
in
a month long.
July?
Yes, ma'am, and in August I was back in jail, so it was about 3 weeks.
I made the loan for him on June the 21st. I paid his fines and restitutions to get him out of jail. He could not get out of jail until they were paid.
He was
the very
not,
next
just
day,
a second, he was not living with you at the time?
No, ma'am, he was in jail.
Okay, so then he got out of jail.
And he was arrested for domestic assault the very next day.
On who?
On me.
How long did he live with you after that?
From the time that I made the loan to him to the time that he moved out of my home completely was, I say, about a month, maybe.
And how much money do you claim you gave her, sir, in your paychecks?
Ma'am, since I've known her...
No, I don't care since you know her. I'm talking about for that 1 month.
Every dime it says I made. Since I've known her, I've signed every paycheck I've ever made, and she has deposited in her account.
Listen to me. You're not following what I'm saying to you.
$2,308. And after I was arrested for domestic assault, my boss came and bonded me out, and I went and stayed with him.
Did he sign his checks over to you, and did they go into a joint account?
No, ma'am. I had my own personal private account. Thomas never was on my account. He was not able to be on my account.
No, that's not what I asked.
Okay. No, ma'am, he did not. No.
What kind of work do you do?
I am a stay-at-home mother. I have a special education child, and I stay at home.
Well, who supports your family?
I get a Social Security check for my son's disability, and I also get alimony from my first 13-year marriage.
Okay. Let me hear about the next loan that you allegedly made to him.
Mr. Luperspeck got out of jail December the 13th of 2004.
Was that for domestic violence?
It was for a probation violation because of the domestic violence.
Against her?
Correct.
Go ahead.
Mr. Luperspeck got out of jail on December the 13th, in which he called me, stated that he had nowhere to stay, nowhere to go. He wanted to come back home. I allowed that to happen. I know that he owed me money from before. I figured if I didn't let him come back home and help him.
Don't even say that. You said that in your complaint.
Well, that was.
I don't believe it. When he came back home, did he sleep with you in your bed?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, it was.
Shut. That's not to give him a place to stay. Giving him a place to stay is that he has a pillow and you go sleep on the couch. Letting him come home and share your bed is a totally different thing, Miss Krantz. You know it and I know it.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I was just in love, and I was
Well, then you
foolish.
have to say that, you know. I mean, that's clear. You were in love with him?
And I was foolish.
Well, then why are you bothering me?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
My daughter was not with me. She had chose to live with her father.
Is she back now?
No, we are just now establishing our relationship together.
It's what happens when you fall in love with a bum.
And later today,
I was trying to get out of the vacation because I didn't want to be around any negative influences where I know that things are going on.
So why did you go?
Speck owes for 2 loans to pay court fines and restitution. Shelley also says Thomas is an abuser.
Okay, you were foolish, you were in love, you gave him money.
I did.
Then you had a fight, and he probably knocked you around, and you had him incarcerated, and then he was violated again, and then as soon as he got out of jail, you let him come back again in December to your home where you have children, where children are supposed to be peaceful and live in a peaceful, quiet environment.
At that time, my daughter was not with me. She had chose to live with her father because of the things that had happened between Mr. Luperspeck and I.
Is she back now?
No, we are just now establishing our relationship together.
Well, that's what happens. It's what happens when you fall in love with a bum. Fall in love with a bum, you can lose your whole family.
I realize that.
That would be you.
No, it wouldn't.
You may have a seat, sir. Yeah, sure. That would be you.
Ma'am, I've worked every day since I've met this lady, and I was sleeping in my car before we were married and giving her my paycheck. I don't consider that being a bum so that her and her family can eat.
Just a second, sir. How did she get involved with the arrest that brought you 2 probation violations? Who'd you steal from her?
No, sir. Ma'am, it was an employer that was refusing to pay me.
You mean an employer that was refusing to pay you? A judge wouldn't listen to you when you were trying to get your money from that employer? Look at you, Mr. Lubitschek. You can't even keep a straight face.
I didn't even try to go through a court. I just took what I felt he owed me.
Did that ever happen before, Mr. Luperspeck?
No, ma'am.
Never were arrested before?
Yes, ma'am.
She didn't have anything to do with that, did she?
Not that I know of.
Okay. So how many times in total, I want you to think? How old are you?
26.
26. So you haven't had that long a life. How many times have you been arrested? Let's say more than 5?
15.
15. So you've been arrested 15 times. And how many times was she involved?
Twice.
Twice out of 50. So 13 times she was not. That makes you a bum.
Sure.
Just because you try to pay your own way and pay a little rent money doesn't make you not a bum. Somebody who's 26 years old has been arrested 15 times is a bum. That's what my grandmother would say.
She's entitled to her opinion.
It's my opinion's the only one who counts here.
Your Honor, ma'am.
Listen to me, Ms. Krantz. Give me the second loan. He came out of jail in December of 2004. You took him back home. I assume it was at that point your daughter went to your ex-husband or before?
No, ma'am, that was in June.
In June of 2004?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, so she had enough of him 6 months before.
Yes, ma'am.
So now let's fast forward to December 2004. Go ahead.
He came home. He was placed on intensive state probation. Part of his probation was that he was to get his license back and retain a job. So he asked if I would help him get his license reinstated. He promised me several times that if I paid this for him, that he would pay me back. He informed me that there were 2 tickets that he had to get paid.
All right, so you gave him how much, $800?
It was over $800.
All right, and then what happened after the 15th?
Shortly thereafter, we began to argue. Thomas still had a problem finding a job.
And?
We began to argue because he wouldn't get a job and he wouldn't pay me back the money that he owed me.
Is that what you were arguing about?
We were arguing because that's what we do. I guess that was one of the topics of conversation, sure.
Your Honor.
And what did you say to her?
I went and sat in the living room on the chair, and when the argument continued, I left.
What was she saying to you?
After about the first 10 minutes, I don't even know. I wasn't listening.
Is it possible she was saying to you, you have to get a job because you have to pay me back the money you owe me?
She did say that, and that's something that we already knew, but it was wintertime. I frame houses for a living, and framing jobs aren't so easy to find in the wintertime.
Well, this makes my life much easier because you see what you just said, Mr. Lubespec? You said that's what we were arguing about, you know, about the money that I owed her. But, you know, it's not so easy in the wintertime to get a job framing, and that's what I do for a living. So you know what that is, Mr. Lubespec?
What is it?
That is an acknowledgement that you owe her money.
Your Honor.
Shut up!
Sorry.
That's what it is. You must have been before a lot of dumb judges in your time, sir.
Not that I know of.
Somebody who's been arrested and probably convicted more than half a dozen times, as far as I'm concerned, should probably be in jail forever. Listen to me carefully, sir. Did you give him a W-2 for his taxes?
Your Honor, it's a different form.
It's a different
1099.
Okay, so you gave him a 1099.
Yes, he's got that.
You have a short time to fill out your taxes, sir.
Correct, ma'am. April 15th.
Right. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,195, which is the amount requested. I don't believe, Mr. Lubespec, that you paid back this loan. Your final statement to me indicates that the last argument that you had with the plaintiff was over this loan. You decided to tune her out on the 15th of December. I tune you out now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
We can't communicate because both of us are hard-headed and didn't want to listen to the other one.
I'm just very hurt that I gave the defendant so many
The 11:45 p.m. train from New York to Boston was nearly empty. Just a few late-night travelers were scattered across the dimly lit cabin. The rhythmic clatter of wheels on steel tracks filled the silence. Ethan Cross sat near the window, staring at the rain streaking past. He wasn't supposed to be on this train. His plan was to fly home, but an unsettling anonymous message had appeared on his phone just hours before. "Do not take the flight. Take the train instead. Your life depends on it." He almost ignored it, until he saw the news alert. Flight 719 to Boston had crashed mid-air. No survivors. Now he sat in his seat, heart pounding, gripping his phone. Who sent the message, and why did they save him? As the train entered a tunnel, the lights flickered. A strange chill crept over Ethan's skin. That's when he noticed him. A man in a black coat and hat sat at the far end of the cabin. He wasn't there when Ethan boarded. He wasn't reading, sleeping, or looking at his phone. He was staring directly at Ethan. The moment their eyes met, the man tilted his head slightly, not blinking. A slow smile crept across his face. Ethan's pulse spiked. Something was wrong. Ethan's breath came in short, sharp bursts. The train car felt wrong, like the walls had stretched slightly, the air thick with something unseen. He gripped the armrest, fingers digging into the worn fabric as he glanced back at the man in the black coat. He wasn't just staring, he was watching, studying. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, pretending to check his phone. No signal, no Wi-Fi. A bead of sweat slid down his temple. The train had gone eerily quiet. No hum of conversation, no rustling of pages, no quiet snores from exhausted travelers. Just the rhythmic clatter of the wheels, too loud now, as if the train was running on hollow bones instead of steel. A flicker in his peripheral vision. Ethan turned his head just slightly. The man was now 2 rows closer. He swallowed hard. He hadn't seen him move. No sound, no shift in the seat, just closer. Ethan forced a breath. It was fine. He was probably just tired, rattled from the flight that never was. But then, another flicker. Closer. Ethan shot up from his seat, heart hammering. He turned to the woman sitting across from him, the one who had been flipping through a crossword puzzle just minutes ago. "Ethan, hey," he said, voice tight. "Ethan, hey," he repeated, reaching out. His fingers barely brushed her shoulder before her head tilted toward him in an unnatural slow-motion jerk. Her eyes met his, vacant, not glazed over, not unconscious, just empty. Ethan yanked his hand back as the other passengers shifted, their heads turning in perfect unison, a dozen pairs of vacant eyes staring at him. The train lights flickered violently. He spun around. The man in the black coat was now inches away. Ethan stumbled back, gasping. "Ethan, what do you want?" he choked out. "Man, you weren't supposed to be on that plane, Ethan." The man smiled, slow and deliberate, as if savoring the moment. His voice was smooth, rich, and inescapable. "Man, but you weren't supposed to be here either." The train lurched. The lights flickered again. Ethan bolted toward the next car. He slammed into the door, locked. "Man, there's no escape, Mr. Cross." The voice was right behind him. Ethan turned slowly. The man was closer now. No footsteps, no movement. He had just appeared there. "Ethan, who are you, man? I'm the one who corrects mistakes." He reached into his coat. Ethan didn't wait. He grabbed the nearest fire extinguisher and swung it hard. The man vanished, not dodged, vanished. The fire extinguisher smashed into empty air. The train screeched to a halt. The doors slid open, but outside wasn't a train station. It was an empty void. Blackness stretched in every direction. A single old-fashioned telephone booth stood on the platform. It rang. Ethan hesitated, then stepped off the train. He picked up the receiver. "Run!" A chill ran down his spine. He turned. The man in the black coat was standing right behind him. Ethan ran, but the platform had no end. The last thing he heard was the train's whistle as it pulled away, without him. And then, darkness. Moral of the story: some warnings save your life, some lead you into something far worse. Ethan avoided one fate, only to step into another.